Yeah!
It's Josh Williams here, and welcome to another bonus episode of the One Man Podcast. Everybody, brought to you by Absolute Comedy. My guest today is world-traveling comedian, great friend, and he was on the Nasty Show Just for Laughs, but he's here with us today. Thank you, Matt Davis, for joining us. Yeah, it just wakes up on the side.
I like how every podcast the people do the ramp up of the voice. It's Josh.
Yeah, exactly. I have no formal training, but I haven't figured out anything else to do with it. And now it's almost like that's just what to expect at the beginning. I don't. Yeah, it's like the Bob Barker thing at the beginning of Price is Right. Right. Here's Bob, or whatever. He's long gone, but I don't. I refuse to watch Drew Carey.
Why?
I don't know. I've always found him annoying. Didn't like
really?
The show. Yeah. I mean, I don't know him personally. I found what I have seen, what I have consumed from him, I find it annoying.
I've only met him once. He was very, very nice.
May very well be.
Very, very nice. I don't know him. I met him one time. He was very nice. I do know an odd factoid about him.
Okay.
That the guys he was working with that were opening for him, and keep in mind this is well after all his shows, right? So he's done well.
Yeah,
he's done well. He was paying all those guys a per show rate that they would have gotten if they were headlining.
Oh,
but
wow.
he was paying them that to do 10 minutes.
Well, that's nice of him.
Yeah.
Did you ever open for him?
No.
What an asshole.
No, it's very sad. I'm very sad about it.
Well, I'm glad you're here, dude. I only ever have, I have to tell my audience right off the bat that Matt's one of my favorite people in the world to spend time with and have conversations with. Love watching it. Yeah, and he's super fucking annoying, just like me. You're doing what I would do in your shoes. But yeah, Matt has performed all over the world. I first saw you here at Absolute Comedy when you used to show up with your three-piece suits.
Yeah.
Very, very dapper dresser
Thank you.
because the things that were coming out of your mouth were the most foul, dark, but funny. I have in my years of seeing comics try dark humor, because a lot of guys will try stuff that's, jokes about, rape and horrible things, and it's not funny. They're not funny jokes. And all these guys are like, people they just don't like that stuff. I was like, no, you can write good. Like the amount of times I've had to quote your material to show someone what a funny, dark joke sounds like.
Well, I think if the emphasis is put on the wrong part, right? There has to be something, the funny part has to be what's being, the subtext, right? It has to be what's being said underneath or what's being done in the moment, right? So if it's something shocking sound, right? If that's the formula, then you've already lost.
Right. There's nothing clever or creative in it.
Even if there is, if I need you to react to the shocking part and not to using that to get something else underneath, then it's kind of a losing game. Right.
And that accent you guys are hearing, Matt is from the South.
There's no accent. I don't have an accent. K-Trev did a bit about me last night.
Did he?
Yeah, about how I did a bit about not having a Southern accent, and he would watch me do that and be like, "What are you talking about?" And then I brought him with me to Myrtle Beach one time, and he saw people there talking, and he was like, "Oh, I'm like, yeah, wow, I don't know what the hell they're saying."
Yeah. You told me the same thing too. It's some girl put some guy on the phone because she couldn't understand what he was saying.
My ex in the Memphis airport asked an old guy where the smoking lounge was or whatever. And then she called me and goes, "I don't know what this guy's saying to me."
Do you remember what it was that he said?
Oh, yeah, he was telling her like where the Delta Blues Cafe or something. You just go down here, make a left hand turn, Delta Blues Cafe over down the right. And she's like, "I don't know what is happening."
Well, I told her she might have to buy Coke or something like that.
Yeah. He's talking to me like having a full we had a 5-minute conversation, hands the phone back. I'm like, "It's up on the right." And she's like, "Is that all he said?" I'm like, "He said some other things too, but we'll talk about that when you get here, when you're not within range of slapping him, because he's 85 and a little loose, with his thoughts." We both just drank coffee at the same time, which caused a pause. It's called bad air.
Well,
bad
they can
air.
fucking wait. They're not paying for it.
They call that bad air in radio.
Do they? Well, this isn't radio. It's a podcast.
This is radio.
Is it?
Yep, it is now.
Okay.
We made it radio.
You just knighted me in terms of radio.
I don't know what I'm doing.
It's radio now. Well,
so how did you get started in comedy, Josh?
Did I? How did I get started in comedy?
Whenever I go on someone's podcast, I like to reverse the roles.
Did you? Well, that's going to make for a bad podcast. They've already heard it. They know my story.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. I'm very narcissistic. I tell them about myself all the time.
do you relate it all
I
back
just bring
to
guests on, yeah, so that I can ask them, so that I can turn around. I pull
like
the
that.
old.
Yeah. I like.
Sorry,
I
I had to quote and mouth someone's name. I wouldn't throw them under the bus here, but we all know certain people in comedy who will ask you a question just so they can tell you their answer to it. But yeah, Maddie's. I mean, dude, I've seen you since I first started. You're fucking hilarious. You know that. Matt is also one of the weirdest.
Here's the problem with that statement to me, though. Like when I'm on stage,
Mm-hmm.
I'm being serious, and the audience will laugh, and I know that that's what allows me to keep doing it, so I don't address it. I don't feel like I can address it, but I'm very serious on stage, and quite frankly, I don't know what's wrong with you people. I don't know why everyone thinks these are such hilarious things. I'm trying to have a very serious dialogue.
Like when you're like, let's go to McDonald's playground and smell the seats.
Right. Why isn't that a thing that people, All right, maybe that's a bad example to use. But.
Oh, Matt's a funny guy. You like, again, I don't want to just keep bringing up stuff you've told in the past, because you're also, I got to give you credit. Like, I've had some of the most intelligent, intellectual conversations that I've had with comics too. Like, as much as, it's goofy and silly. Like, you're a very well-read person.
Well, you need better friends.
I guess so.
I think that's the problem.
I guess so. I had the first intelligent conversation with Jason last weekend at a barbecue, and it's only been 10 years. Matt knows Jason very well too. Basically, to spend time with Jason amicably, you got to either be playing ping pong, darts, or golf,
or pinball.
That's what I said. Oh, did I say ping pong?
You said ping pong.
Whatever. I think it's above his.
Oh, really?
It's outside of his level. Yeah, it's too much of a conversation back and forth. Jay's like, no, I'll take a turn, then you take a turn. We don't cooperate with people. It's not I don't want you included in my direct results. But yeah, I enjoy having good conversations. You're a well-read dude. You know a lot. It's probably, I used to tell people, right now we're back to me. I used to tell people all the time, like when they're like, oh, if they'd have a good conversation with me where it was something actually intellectual or whatnot, they'd be like, oh, I didn't realize that, you knew a lot, whatever. I'm like, I think that's why I'm funny, is I think that the more you learn and the more you're like, this world is fucked up, that the funny is like the exhaust fumes of just processing all this craziness.
Sometimes, yeah. But I mean, like from a creative standpoint,
right?
We, in the same way that you learn things, like the brain, right? We learn things by reference, right? And we also formulate ideas by pulling off reference. Well, the greater the pool of references you have to draw from, right? The more comparisons you can make, the more analogies you can make, then creatively, the more, theoretically, right?
Yeah.
The more you can do creatively with that.
I know there's noise happening. Who's coming down the stairs?
I don't know. They just turned the corner. And
Welcome to One Man Podcast Studios, aka our dining room at the house.
And they just went back up the stairs, and it's.
You've seen over the years how many people have come and gone from this house. Does this not seem like an orphanage for like fucking misfit comics?
I assumed it was, honestly. I thought this was like a scam that he had running with the Canadian government.
Yeah, it's just like it's a foster home, but he still charges rent.
Yeah,
it's subsidized, but he doesn't tell us.
Yeah. I always assume
that's why Jay always wants to do our taxes. He needs our social security so he can send that paperwork.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
You guys can't report income. It throws off his whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the only time he makes sure that Simon's the only one here every time they come over. Respect, so they can,
then
they can meet the prime.
Wow.
Yeah. You are doing the Lord's work, sir.
That's not fair. That's not fair.
If they can see the look on your face. So I asked this, of course, of all my guests is what were you doing prior to stand-up, and how did you get into stand-up comedy?
I got into stand-up, it would have been late 90s, and I got mid-late 90s, mid-90s, and I got on the World Wide Web, right? And the old Google homepage of the World Wide Web, and I hit that I'm feeling lucky button, and now I'm here. I can't get out. I can't get out. I can't get out. I spent 9 years as the second wife to a Colombian drug lord, some sort of a weird suicide cult, and then somehow that became.
So you can tell you're not full of yourself because you knew you were the second wife.
Yeah, and it was the second wife. Yeah,
second of importance. The second wife of a drug lord.
No, I was 17. I was like 17. So I mean, I was, it's the combination of ignorance and arrogance, right? I wanted to do it, so I did it. Somebody called my bluff on it when they told me to basically shut up or do it.
Really?
And so I did. And then
Were you
it
at
was
it?
all downhill from there.
So how the fuck did that happen? You're having a conversation with someone? You were at a show heckling and someone's like,
No. Just like friends of mine. I talked about wanting to do it. I watched stand up and all that stuff in high school. And at that point, I would have been out of high school because I left sophomore year and went to a college thing. I wasn't a real big fan of high school.
No, neither was I.
But I also, but I was injured. Like I broke my back in high school.
You broke your back?
Yeah. So I like to skip over like things. People are like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, that happened." Anyway, and then I jumped. I broke.
How do you break your back?
Well, how do you not? You know what I'm saying? Out there running around like lunatics that we were.
Emotionally, we break our backs.
Emotionally every day.
I have to work 5 days a week.
Yeah, I broke my back from carrying this conversation. No, that's an old vaudeville line. I broke my back playing soccer, actually.
Real?
Yeah. I know that's the reaction I get most of the time. People are like, "What did you do
You basically
wrong?"
were the pioneer of diving.
No,
I dove head first into the ground when some guy flicked my ear.
Yeah, no, it was, somebody tried to scissor me and they didn't lock my knee up and I flipped, landed on my shoulder blades. And then, don't get me wrong, I was like red card king, I was a dick. So I probably deserved whatever move was coming to me. I think karma technically probably broke my back. And I had I forget what it's called, spondylolisthesis. So like the wings that make the facet between L3 and L4 shattered. Right, I see your eyes are crossing.
My eyes just crazy like the facility, but I'm like, well, wow, okay.
Well, the vertebrae are stacked right in your back, and then you have like the little wings up the side that make the joint, right? So that's a facet. That's a facet.
What is that called?
And then the wings, it's either L3 or L4. They basically exploded. They're gone. They're not there anymore. And then that causes the vertebrae above to move. Right, and it scrapes back and forth the other one. It wears the disc out in between, and then it causes microfractures. And then the bones try to heal themselves with bone spurs, and you break those every time you move. So you get like the nausea.
So you basically had like what is it called? Bunions in your back.
I think that's probably accurate. But like the nausea you would get if you broke your arm, like I just got that constantly because of
still.
No, not anymore.
Oh, okay.
Not anymore. I didn't have it fused though. I didn't have
because you
surgery
lose
on it.
so much movement from my grandfather had his back fused. Like could
It's
barely
a fucked-
move anything.
Yeah,
You're
it's a fucked prospect. But
you're stiff like an accountant all the fucking time, just straight fucking posture always.
So that's why I'm all like hunched out. I'm slowly being like sucked into the ground, I think. You know what I mean? It's just like pulling me back to the soil. So I went through that. It was a whole nightmare. And then that's where my lack of respect for like public schools, I think, comes from, because I dealt with the administration end of that, where I'm having to do stuff at home. And then like the state in the U.S., they send your homeschool teacher, right? And they're supposed to help you through the classes because I couldn't sit like in a desk and all that, have braces and all this bullshit. So then this lady comes and she's trained to teach like, pre-kindergarten. And so she can't do like the math I'm doing or whatever, which is just high school math. It's not like I was, in some advanced physics thing or something. It's just math.
She's just trying to teach you bed mass and shit.
And she's like,
that.
I don't know how to do this. So I had to read the book myself and then basically do all the work, right? And then she got fired because she kept telling me about her migraines and she's asking a 15-year-old basically for pain meds, And I was like, a nice introduction to like, oh, okay, adults are shitty. Got it. And then, got into arguments with the school about not having work done that was agreed upon. And then, basically realized that no one here knows what the hell they're doing. It was very, what's the book? The Emperor by Ryszard, is it Kapuscinski? Wrote The Emperor. It's about the fall of Haile Selassie. And
glad you're asking me. I feel...
Well, Haile Selassie, the emperor of Ethiopia, like at the end of his reign, like everyone's running around the palace, like freaked out,
Right.
But they're all acting like it's not happening as people are being kidnapped. It's like a Mel Brooks movie, dude. It's insane.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, they're debating on curtain changes for banquets that are never going to happen because everyone's being assassinated out back, right? And everyone's just kind of like, this is all we know to do. And this thing that's changing it makes us just focus on and that's what it was. So like I would go. I'm trying to set the time of when I'm going to come in to do like the midterm or whatever, and they just could not process like, who are you? Like we've met. Like I don't understand how I've been in this class for a year. Well, we can't change this. You haven't done any of the in-class assignments. You signed off on that 8 months ago. That I was sending them in to someone, and they were signing off on it. Right? and then full on arguments would break out. And so I left. And in the transition, the state of Alabama would not let you drop out of high school and go to college. You couldn't do that seamlessly. So if you dropped out before you were 18 or something, then you had to wait till 19 to enroll.
Okay.
Right. And I'm not really sure why. Also, unless you were married, which is baffling to me. Like, you could drop out at like 17, get married, and then it was like, oh, cool, you're married. All right, that's fine. Clearly, you know enough. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So I had to get letters from like the state, whatever board and something else to be able to go. And that school wouldn't give them to me because we'd gone rounds, right? So my father enrolled me in a Christian school. And we made a deal that I would come in and take the state aptitude test,
Right.
which is, the test that they use that goes with their funding, basically as a ringer to throw their scores off. I would come in and take that test, and in exchange for that, this dude would write whatever. So he wrote the second letter that we needed. I went in for 3 days to that school. I just took Scantron tests and walked out, and that was it. And then enrolled in junior college so I could have transcripts, and then did a semester at junior college, and then went to University of Alabama at like 18 years old,
Now,
17 years old.
You did start stand up when you were 17?
I was 17
so
when I started.
you're
yeah.
doing all this while being a comic.
Somewhere in there I started. So in that process, somewhere is when I started doing like open mics and stuff.
And so do you remember your first time on stage?
Vaguely, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
To me, it's like I could see, I can't remember like, everything after the first like one or two times.
I remember like the first, and it was one of those in my brain, it went well.
Right.
The second time did not. The second time went awful.
The first time has to go well, because I think if it doesn't, then you
I know
go
some-
like two
I
or three
know-
times bad, you're like, I'm just not doing this.
I know some guys that like the first time was abysmal, but
Really?
then it became a challenge to them.
Well,
And the
that's
first
good.
time for me, it went well. But I mean, I'm sure if I looked back on whatever it was I said, it was awful, right? You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure I would hate it
Oh
now.
yeah, I
But-
have mine on video on the computer, and I cannot watch it. Cannot watch it. A minute, and I'm like, this is the worst. How did I ever get?
What
past
made
this?
you record the first time?
I just think that the fact that so many people, because I mean, I've told this story to my listeners, but in terms of why I recorded it, I think it's just there were so many people that wanted to see it, because like I started at 25 or so.
Right.
Yeah, like 25 years old. So I felt late, but there's so many people who start even later than that.
It's not late. It's a weird thing, though. I mean, I've had people bring it up, in conversations and interviews before, and they're like, "Well, you started really young, and whatever." And I know a bunch of guys that started around that age as well. And the issue, of course, is that you're not a person. So, like,
Right.
the mechanics maybe you learn, but you don't have anything to talk about. I mean, you're 17 years old. I mean, I don't give a shit what your life experience has been up until that point. Like, unless you were a child soldier, like literally, like in the Congo at 7, you have nothing to talk about to a room full of adults.
Right.
So it's silly and it's dumb and it's whatever it is. I mean, honestly, most stand-up, and I'm not even 40, but I would say most stand-ups don't really hit their stride where I find them interesting until they're in their 40s.
Right.
And I would, I mean, you'd list it off, whether you want to go with an angle of like a Bill Burr. I mean, Hicks is an obvious exception.
Right.
But, Burr, Pryor, Carlin, and even, people currently, Madigan, I mean, you can just, they're all 40s up. And I think there's a life experience thing that has to kind of converge with.
Well, you start connecting with the people who are essentially coming to the shows too.
Well, there's that, but I think also to have the confidence to have a point of view and to be able to say, you have to have lived X amount.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you can be like, oh, this happened to me once. And as a young person, you're like, is that even something that everyone's had? Or is that just me? Whereas you start to live life and you're just like, yeah, this is life. And yeah, I can talk about this confidently.
Yeah.
There's a shitload of different things too. And that was one of the things that I was grateful starting stand up late, is because I had worked so many different jobs and I'd done so many different things. Like by that time I had my electrical license. I'd worked for a corporate sales job for like one of the biggest telecom companies in the country, kitchens, fucking regular. I started working when I was like 10. Like I had paper routes and stuff like that, and was doing a dishwasher because I had friends of the family that owned restaurants. So I was working every day after school, and I even dropped out of high school to work. So I'd worked at the hotels at the Westin. I'd worked there when I was 18. Like I spent a lot of time working a lot of different jobs. So I'm grateful for that experience, because if I'd been fucking around doing open mics, like my mom was one of the first people who was like, you should be a stand-up comedian. And I'm like, I'm not even 10. And my mom's like, you're so funny. So that's the thing, is all the people in my life, friends, family members, I was the last one to think I should be a comic, not like the first, So I think that's why it was recorded the first time, is that there were so many people who wanted to be there that couldn't be, that it was just recorded for them.
Right.
And now I can't stand to show anyone. I think I showed, when I was dating Crystal, I showed her the first like 3-4 minutes and I had to turn it off, which is weird. I should have just walked into the room and let her watch it. But I was like, I got to turn this off. This is horrible. We were, when we were first sort of dating, I'm like, yeah, you can't. Looking at it now, I'm like, maybe that's funny to you. I can't bear to watch it. That's fucking awful.
Can I have a copy of it?
Sure.
Thank you.
Which is probably the least creepy thing that you've ever asked for.
Oh, come on now.
I'm kidding. In terms of, I love your stories though, where you're walking to someone's house, see a picture of the kids. I'm like, can I have this?
Can I have a copy of this?
Can I have a copy?
Well, because people always want to show you pictures of their kids, and I don't care. Right. And it's exhausting. So I just started asking for copies, and then it puts a stop to it.
Like, don't show me your kids.
I think it gets around. People are like, don't show them pictures of your kids. They'll ask for one. And they're like, what? And then you don't
even have to meet them. That's even fucking better.
Amazing.
What a magical thing. I'm going to start doing that. I thought it was just funny and weird. Now I didn't realize it's so practical.
I told you, I'm not doing jokes. These are all very seriously calculated things. And I don't know why the audience is laughing. It's exhausting.
How long after you started, like when you first started, was it long or short before you started getting like the paid work or whatever? Because some guys, it's crazy long time and it's grinding. And then some of them just right out of the gate, it seems.
Yeah, mine wasn't that long. It's a different time,
right.
as well. So by late night. So probably within a year of open mics, I was doing hosting stuff.
That's good.
Which in the States, of course, is, ridiculously the entry, which doesn't make any sense from a show standpoint. Doing guest spots and hosting stuff. And then by the time I was 18, 19, I was the house MC of the club where I started. So I was there, 5-6 nights a week.
Wow.
Doing a lot of sets. And then by the time and around that time too, I would go out and I was doing stuff at other, cities nearby. You start building the circle, the ever,
right.
The Roman tour, as they say, the origin of the word, the circle. So I was going out and doing that, Memphis, Atlanta, Nashville, all those cities. And then that just got wider and wider and wider. And then by the time I was, 21, I was headlining some places, done some Funny Bones, stuff like that. And then by the time I was 22, we were doing like a 3-month stint in Vegas.
Nice.
Then, so through my 20s, it was more the expanding of, geography wise.
Right.
I did a lot of country shit growing up. I missed out on things though. Like I'd never gone to a gun show. I know, you would think rural Alabama, right? Public school system, 3rd grade field trip. Must have been sick. But I went last year, right? I don't know why. I want to see what it's about, But I'm not dumb. Like I know the level of redneckery that takes place at a gun show, right? I don't know if redneckery is a word, but you know what the fuck I meant when I said it. Bearded people, missing teeth, shoes optional. I was prepared for that. Hitting home up there. What I was not prepared for, though, is the hardcore, creepy neo-Nazi contingent that apparently hangs out at the gun show that nobody fucking warned me about. Yeah, you're laughing? Fuck you for not telling me. I'm a small, bald white man. A Nazi sees me, they get excited. They're like, ooh, customer. And I'm like, no. Like, I am not bald the same way you were bald, sir. I am bald because of a high level of testosterone. You were bald because of a low level of reading. If you don't giggle at that, you're probably a Nazi. That's the way I see it.
People tell me, like, I would like you to read to me when I go to sleep.
Really?
The way I talk. You have a very soothing voice. I'm like, do I? Do I have a soothing voice?
It
makes me want to scream.
It's the southern accent too. I mean, yours isn't thick. Can you do just English? Yeah.
Can I do just what?
Just English?
What do you mean? This is English.
American? Can you speak American?
Do you want like a more of a southern accent?
No, I know you have that. I've been talking about it. We do like the whole full Boomhauer from
what?
King of the Hill.
Those weren't words, man.
Right? Well, they never are. At least
they are words.
The rest of us.
That's the thing. They are words.
Are they?
They're saying something. You just have to like pay attention and decode it.
You basically, it's like somebody just typed without hitting a space bar, and you go in and put the spaces.
It's that, but then it's lumped in with whatever metaphor or analogy.
Yeah,
right.
We have ourselves.
It's never direct. That's the other thing. It's always an indirect statement.
Yeah.
Like as a dude in a bar Birmingham the other week when I was there, and he walks over to a group of people where I'm sitting with, and he just walks over and points at my buddy's shoes, and he's like, "What kind of shoes you got there, man? Let me see them shoes, man. What is it, man, them running shoes? Man, you can't get into any shit with that." He's look at these work boots. I got these work boots on. Look how high up they go. Yeah, I can get in some deep shit. You can't get in no shit with that. And I'm like, I don't even know what's happening. Like, I know what's happening. It's just this silly pecking order, you know.
Yeah, you can't get any shit with that.
He's making fun of someone because they're not wearing work boots.
Right.
It's baffling, but it's by measure of how deep, like literally deep depth of something you could step in.
Yeah. Because everybody wants to play in the swamp.
Yeah, but he's basically saying you're a wuss.
Yeah.
Because he can't stand and poop. The old measure. The old measure of manliness. How much poop can you stand in?
Before you get some. That's it's funny too, because you can't turn around to a guy like that, you can't turn around and be like, "Oh, how many digits in your bank account?" Because they don't know what that means.
Well, he might have more than you.
Think
I
so?
mean, I don't know what standing in poop pays.
Shit shovelers jobs?
Dude, I don't know.
A lot of those in the
I
South.
mean, he's not spending the money on vacations. You know what I mean?
No.
Because those places are full of foreigners.
Right. Because we have that's we have Southerners here too. They're just East Coasters, different direction. But you know, if you listen to East Coasters, hey boy, how you doing there, bud? Like they have the
Sure,
same
yeah.
sort of like goofy, silly, and they have that friendliness to your face. Now they are, I would say that, you know, not because they're my countrymen, but just generally speaking, I would say that they're maybe a little more hospitable out east, but just as goofy sounding.
Well, Southern people are hospitable, but remember that, you know, the word hospitality, right, shares the same root as the word hostile. Don't cross your eyes at me. Hostility and hospitality share the same root, right? So there's something interesting about the idea of hospitality. Well, the idea of hospitality is, you know, you stay with someone and they take care of you, right? But then, of course, because they're taking care of you, right, you're now subjected to the power of the house. So like in an aristocratic Greek sense, right? Like you come stay on someone's land and they can provide because
you're
you
under my
cannot
roof. Yeah.
provide for you, right? And there's something hostile there. There's something you're now being subjugated to the power of the person of the house, right? So hospitality has like this unspoken, like, yeah, come on in, we got you, man, come on in. And then you're like, yeah, I disagree with your politics. You get the fuck out of here. I'll kick your ass. Don't you ever question a man in his house. Like those two things are married together, right?
Right.
As a concept. What's wrong?
I just love all that stuff. It's like, oh, it's Southern hospitality. Well, let me tell you a story, man. That's what I like about you, is that you'll do a fucking shit joke, and then immediately the next time you're like it's like that. What's the name of that book? Like, I'm gonna somehow help you out with your fucking crazy literary reference. And not crazy, spot on. I apologize. Your impeccably accurate reference that I will not have in my reference book. Your field of reference is much larger than mine. You have more to draw from. Now, if we were talking about pornography, perhaps I could name some scenes that would make your point. But unfortunately, everybody always lets everyone inside them in those movies.
Wow.
And therefore, I can't just pick one.
Okay. I don't know how we segue to that.
I have nothing to add. I wish I could read more. I really do. That's one of the things that I'm working on this month is reading for 30 minutes a day, but it puts me to sleep.
Put you to sleep?
It puts me to sleep only because I think I'm too anxious. I'm always, I can't, like I read the same paragraph over and over again because as soon as I start reading, immediately something else starts going on my brain. As much as I'm reading the words and everything, it's gone. I'll reread the same paragraph over and over again.
But what kind of stuff are you reading?
All over the map. I'm reading stuff on like mindfulness. I'm reading stuff on relationships. I'm reading stuff on psychology. I'm reading all sorts of different things. And,
Like pop psychology stuff?
But here's the thing. No, I don't. I'm interested more. Like this. Here's the thing. Like I ordered the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius because when you talked about it, we were driving back from Kingston, and you were telling me about it and just the different things he was contemplating. You know, is the war?
It's fascinating.
Is the war that we're going to fight tomorrow going to matter in 400 years and things like that? And I've talked to other people. I've been saying I haven't even read the book yet, but the idea that this guy is, you know, to have, you know, not save face, but to be a good leader, and at the same time to be so empathetic to, you know, your adversary or whatever, like that is well ahead of its time. It's not like this guy was studying psychology. It's just that had the wherewithal.
Well, he studied. I mean, he studied. Every religion. I mean, one of the interesting things is him referring to Christians as the cult of Christianity, right? Because of the time period, right? But he was well versed in. I don't know who he would have studied under, who Aurelius would have been. That's what's first sentence. That's like 60 AD or something.
Stop asking me questions when it comes to books. You just
books,
put me on
history.
the spot.
History.
Fine, it's history book. It's
History the book.
Comes from history the book.
History the book of stuff.
It was the first Harry Potter history.
It was. It really was. No, it doesn't matter. So he was very well read in religions of the day, but even like Buddhism and all that stuff, right? That wasn't necessarily in his face,
right?
And it's just fascinating, him processing it. But he takes a lot of what I would consider like negative, like pessimistic philosophical stances, right? Not pessimistic in the way we use it, generally, but as in a school of thought, like a pessimistic philosophical school, like cynical, right? The cynics and stuff. He takes a lot of that. And so there's a lot of those contemplations in there that are pretty heavy. And it's fascinating that this is a guy that was the ruler of Rome, right? And he's just dismissing statues that are, of himself. Like, this is dumb. Like in 5,000 years, this is all going to be dust.
Yeah.
And here are all these guys that, he read growing up, and he's naming them off. And then he's like, no one remembers who they are. And that's then. And we don't even have their work now. Like, it's gone. It's erased. And he's just mentioning them by name. And he's like, this is all pointless. This is everything we're doing is dumb. And he's writing that as an old man on the front of war where he died, Yeah. It's where he
but that's the thing too, is it's interesting to read that stuff. And it's like, now, first off, back in a time when he's writing down, it's like, how many people are even going to be able to read it? Do you know what I mean? He's not writing it so that he can have a bestseller the next fucking month.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think his
Well, they came out posthumously.
What's that?
Those are his personal journals. So it would have came out after he died, I believe.
Of course, but I mean that the idea is that he wasn't he wasn't trying to get it published. This was his journal.
Yeah. What's the point though? What would be the point of him publishing it? Because also
that's what I'm saying. Nobody can read.
Well, no, not even that. Like, he's already like the leader of Rome.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, his face is on money. It's not like he needs a publishing deal and an Instagram account with a bunch of followers.
That's what I'm
right?
saying. But I'm saying so just to have the wherewithal to write it all down, like in a time like people write now, and the idea is what I'm reading, the things that I'm reading are more about enlightenment. So it's interesting to hear stories, and that's why I want to read it myself, is about a guy who seemed so enlightened in a time where that wasn't like just, I'm having a bad day, I'm going to open my fucking meditations app and get my meditation of the day. Like, this is a guy who's, not, and the ego, right? Because they say absolute power corrupts absolutely. So a guy who has that power to not be like, I'm just going to go fucking shake my sword dick around and we're going to get ready to fuck him. Like, the idea that he actually implied or implemented empathy in what he was doing. You know what I mean?
Don't get me wrong. He was still slaughtering people,
Right.
But
if he didn't, someone else would have. So may as well. I personally would rather have somebody at the helm who's showing empathy. I mean, in that jungle just south of the border right now, the guy who's in charge right now it seems to be all about him. Marcus Aurelius could have very much been Trump, where it's like, oh, fuck you. You want to say that my ratings suck? Well, today my focus is on pointing out how much better the ratings were on my TV show. And I'm like, you're leading everybody, right? It's not about
Marcus
you.
Aurelius didn't even have a TV show. I mean, that's how humble he was.
I just thought they kept turning down his fucking scripts, his pitches. We don't really like what do they call that? Not the pitch script or whatever. No, there's something.
Treatment.
That's the one, treatment. Yeah, they kept turning down his treatments. But that's the thing, like you could have had a guy like Trump, who's just like me. I'm in charge. I'm the boss.
Those guys.
Of course there were, but I'm saying Marcus Aurelius is the kind of guy going, at least from what you've told me. So I'll blame your reading.
Just I mean, it's an interesting book. You never read it. It's an interesting book. It's not. It's a you can burn it in an afternoon, right? 90 minutes, 90 pages, whatever it is. Just those collection of those. There's some far more fascinating like characters. Diogenes is my favorite. I think Diogenes is the root of all social commentary that becomes comedy later on. I think we can trace all the way back to Diogenes. When people are giving their brilliant ideas, and he just listen to it and then just deconstruct their idea. Never offer like an alternate. He'd just shit on it and then walk away. He's amazing.
He was like the fucking Waldorf and the other one there.
Yeah, like Alexander one of the stories with Diogenes, Alexander the Great comes to meet him, right? And so Alexander the Great would have been pupiled by Aristotle. I think that's right. I could be wrong. And he goes, so he goes to meet Diogenes. Diogenes would have been an old man at this point. When he was homeless, he lived like in the streets. And so he goes over, and Diogenes is laying out in the sun, right? And Alexander the Great goes over. He introduces himself, right? Like, I'm Alexander the Great.
I think I know how to say it.
Is there anything that I can do for you? And Diogenes
You're
goes,
blocking my son?
Because you can move out of my son. And it's so great. So then Alexander
That's like the only thing I probably would know of all the literary references.
Yeah, so Alexander the Great, would say after that, that if he wasn't Alexander the Great, he would like to be Diogenes. Because he
Really?
because he's the man that can give you anything, but he can't give anything to that guy that has nothing. Diogenes is like this. I mean, Alexander the Great could literally give you anything, and there's nothing he could do for him.
Yeah.
And that ate his brain up.
Yeah.
Just the sheer fact that how is this dude more powerful than me? There's nothing I have that I can do for this dude, except for get out of his son.
He's like a chick you wouldn't pay attention, or won't get her attention in the bar.
Yeah.
I want him because he doesn't want me.
Yeah, basically.
I have to dumb things down to a Jersey Shore level for myself. I'm like, that's really. So
I gotta
what you're
snooky
saying.
this up. I gotta
she
snooky
just
this up.
She just had a tit job and collagen injections, and he doesn't want to fuck her. Okay, I get it now.
Yeah, basically. It's another great one where he's walking into the theater and he would go in the theater like the wrong way. Everyone's leaving, and he would walk in the exit as everyone's coming out. And when people go, "What are you doing?" He's like, "The same thing I do every day." Some great
I love that shit. So these are the kind of conversations that Matt and I have. You told me a long time ago, which I thought was interesting, and I was like immediately like, oh, I would love to not only just read, but when you read, you make notes in the.
I'm a lunatic. Yeah, I'm a librarian's worst nightmare.
Yeah.
I will
So
write-
if it's
I will
you'll do
write
it
a book.
in library books.
No.
Okay.
But I mean, like librarians, are,
They
usually
just
have
fussy
the
about it.
attitude that a book is you don't do that, right?
And so you'll make notes in the margins and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
So I have to buy books because I will make notes in the margins, and then I go back and organize my notes and write out other points from those notes. I'm out of my mind, but
And it's not for material by any means, right? It's just it's fascinating. So I'm trying to.
yes and no. I mean, that's where a lot of it comes from. Is that's considered part of the writing and creative process to me. So
Okay.
that's where a lot of it gets boiled down. I mean, I'll write essays for myself that are me trying to come to grips with what do I actually think about a topic before I can even tackle it joke wise. I may write the joke first. I may write the joke in reaction. That's how a lot of humor works. We write it in reaction to whatever.
Yeah.
And then I won't necessarily agree with the joke itself because it's completely written in reaction in the game of writing where I've removed all these real world things from it, right? But then to me, that's step one. Step two is you go back and you play a game of like, does this fit, right? Is this actually a thing? And a lot of times an issue will come up and I don't necessarily know where I stand on it. I haven't thought this through.
Right.
And you'll write a joke in reaction the same way someone will make a comment in reaction about something and then they realize quickly like, okay, that's not what I mean, right? And I will go back through and read on that or contemplate on it and write about it and write a whole, ridiculous amount about this topic until I kind of circle around and go, oh, this is what I think and this is why. I agree with that. I don't with this, whatever. And then I will rewrite the joke so that it fits. If I can, if it can still be done as a joke, I'll rewrite that so that it fits what I think.
Yeah. Fits your position on it and everything like that. Because that's the thing too. I have ideas. It's a good way of putting it too, because I go through the same process. I'm just not aware that that's the process I'm going through. I'm just, as far as I just call it overthinking. Keep going over it and figuring it out. But that's the same thing too, is I'll think something on it, and then I have to figure out, I'm like, do I feel that way? Am I just angry right now about something? Anger is fear. What could I be afraid of in this instant? Go back over it. What do I really feel at the end of the day of it? What's the position? Maybe I just need to start reading more, start writing in my books.
Yeah.
It's not even the books that makes me think. See, that's the problem. I'll be reading the book and I'll start thinking about something completely different.
Well, just put a notepad next to you and then jot those down and go back to it and go back and forth.
Well, you showed me Scrivener. Is that still a thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, it's a software where you can write and then you can actually make notes in the digital notes in the margins of what you're writing, right?
I mean, you can do a lot more than that, but you can't do that. Yeah.
See, yeah,
Scrivener, it's on version 3 now. It's for long form writing. So it's organization for long form. I think it's originally put together for like academic papers and stuff. But it's great for organizing a big mess of notes.
Yeah.
It's really great for that. And you get the note card view and all that.
I think
I hope that I'm going to get sponsored by them by talking about them constantly.
We'll reach out to them. I have two book company sponsors right now for the podcast.
2 book companies?
Or publishing companies, I apologize. And I used the
I was
fucking
like, what the
peasant term for it. I apologize.
I didn't even know what you meant.
You're like, what book company is this from?
I have 2 book companies.
Yeah, they're a company that deals in books.
Huh.
Fuck you.
I'm listening. I'm listening. I'm learning.
Yeah.
I thought it was like bookies. I thought you were taking
That's
dog
what the
track
delivery
book.
was on the door when we came in from Penguin Books. They sent me
Oh,
more
Penguin.
books.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Have you heard of them?
Yeah.
They're a very prominent book company.
Jesus.
You can call them a publishing house if you want to be a prick. You guys, that's like, yeah, this prick over here called it literary. No, it's a fucking book. Anyways,
One of them reading things. One of them.
yeah, like that toilet paper with the black shit on it.
Wow.
I think it's funny that
Somebody wrote it on my firewood.
Yeah, but the thing is, the two companies are not. Geez, the one with shit. They're not shit. First off, one of them is Uncle John's Bathroom Readers. That's one of the sponsors of the podcast. So
I know.
I was going to say they're not shitty books, but they kind of but they're one of.
They
so
would
it's
actually like it if you said shitty books. I think I made a smart ass comment about them years and years ago on Twitter one time, and they replied to me, and I laughed my ass off.
Was it funny?
I don't remember what it was, but I just remember laughing at the fact that I didn't at them in it. I just made some comment about Uncle John's Bathroom Reader, and they just replied to it. This is way before that was like the funny thing to do for companies to hire somebody monitoring that, and they were right on top of it, and it just made me laugh.
Yeah, Larry the Cable Guy responded to a tweet where I was insulting him one time, but he was fun about it. He just went with it, and that was like, I kind of like him now. I'm like, I can appreciate a guy who's that big who personally responds. Like,
I'm not sure he does personally respond though.
It was a picture of him doing exactly what I was doing in the thing, like 10 minutes later. So I was like, okay, he didn't have time to fucking. His people couldn't go through the file of, all right, if someone does this to Larry, like my.
What
buddy,
if they did though, like the old SNL bit where they're like trying to pre-record like the Tom Brokaw sign-offs, the
like
news
Super Bowl
things.
champions? They've got both shirts made already.
Yeah,
just
but they were trying to do it like he was like whoever it was going to go on vacation in the SNL skit, and so they're trying to like record all the possible scenarios that are going to happen while they're gone, and it's starts off with so and so died, and then it just gets more and more insane.
That's fucking funny. Well, it was like my buddy. I was at his place and he had a riding mower, so I just sat on it. I immediately felt very blue collar. That's the nicest way I can think of.
Wow, man.
Saying I've had blue collar jobs. I just felt very blue collar on a riding mower on a piece of property.
Why are you being classist?
I don't know. I haven't figured out my position on everything yet. But I just turned my hat to the side, crossed my eyes, and I'm like doing my research, trying to get that Larry the Cable Guy money or whatever. And then like 10 minutes later, I get a response, him with his hat turned sideways, his eyes crossed. He goes, hey, that's my line. Or that's my fucking signature move or something like that.
Yeah, but I could.
And I was like, that's cool of him.
But I could see him having just a stack of photos of him on a riding lawnmower. I could see that.
Oh, absolutely. With his hat tilted, eyes crossed, stupid slack jaws, same as me.
Yeah.
I thought it would take them longer to find the photo.
No.
Oh, well.
He could have just been on a riding lawnmower when that happened.
Fair enough. But even still, it was still a response from him.
Sure. I'm not trying to take it away from you.
No, it wasn't a big deal. I was like, I'm going to shit on this guy. And then he responded, I'm like, that was nice.
Yeah, I'm going to shit on this billionaire real quick.
Exactly. I'm only allowed to punch up nowadays, right? I would shit on the people below me, but I'm not allowed. That's the rules. I wish there was like a fucking comedy continuum or something we could just fucking jump on every day and just be like, what are the rules today in comedy?
There are no rules.
I know. Well, it feels like there are at times. We're always getting shit. But let's go back to you. Let's talk about getting in shit.
You're getting twitchy. You're getting worked up.
I want to talk about stuff, but I can't. I was talking with David Pride a long time ago. And he was just saying, like, he's smart. He has all the stuff. He's like, I want to talk about more. I was just getting in trouble, and I was like, can't talk about anything. But he had said that on Chappelle's last special, that Chappelle was saying, like, it's a comedian's job to speak recklessly, is to just say what you're thinking, say it and get it out there. It's almost like we help get the conversation started.
All right. Yes, I know what you're thinking. I know. Finally, a Latino comic. I know exactly. I am here. Hola, something. All right.
I love cigarettes. All right. I do. I love. People don't smoke anymore. I know what's happening. You can't smoke anywhere. Anyway, it's getting ridiculous, too. I understand why other people don't smoke. I fully understand that. But the people who yell at me for smoking, it's getting a little bit out of control. A little ridiculous. I was outside smoking. Had a lady get mad at me. Just come out of nowhere. Just, you shouldn't smoke around me. Well, maybe you shouldn't walk next to me. I may be a rapist, bitch. You don't know me. Crazy ass lady telling me what to do. Coincidentally, I can't hang out outside of curves anymore, but whatever. That's an all-women's gym if you missed that one, yeah. I like cigarettes. I'm going pro-smoking, too. I know it sounds ridiculous. Even those of us here who smoke realize how ridiculous the phrase pro-smoking sounds. But I'm only going pro-smoking to counteract the ridiculousness of the anti-smoking people. I'm going grassroots level, too. I am. Like this past year for Halloween, that's what I gave out. Not candy, cigarettes. Little Casper comes to the door, trick or treat. Here's both, little buddy. See you in 10 years when you're pissed. All right. People get mad at that one too, like, you shouldn't even joke. You shouldn't even joke about giving kids cigarettes. You should be ashamed of yourself. You shouldn't even joke about that. I don't know what's worse. Joking about giving kids cigarettes or giving little fat kids that come to my door every year candy. Like, how you doing, gigantic ghost? Wow, there's a lot of you. Well, here's a whole box of Snickers. There you go. Best of luck with your type 2. All right. Come back next year, I'll give out Liberty Medical Supplies. It'll be a big event.
The voting thing I find fascinating.
Okay.
Only because I come from a place that has a long history of trumped up, no pun intended, invented, voting regulations and laws and, fictionalized voter fraud and all these kind of things that are all meant to marginalize people. And it's what they were. All right. And it's happened over and over and over and over again. And I'm also fascinated with this idea where we, democracy, right, as the end all be all, because we see it that way because we're raised in a democracy, right? But taking away the origin of democracy, we look at democracy from 18th century forward, right? Not its origins, not from Plato's Republic of a republic and a representative government that essentially perpetuates a divide et impera of the lower class, right? Right. So that the upper class can maintain, right? The negotiation that's put in place there is more of a, if you guys all agree on this, you can come to us and then we'll change the laws.
Right.
But you all have to agree. And until you agree, we're just going to keep making the laws because we have the free time because we're not the ones actually farming anything. Right. So we kind of take that representative government idea and it gets, embodied in Western countries now. And then we scream about democracy even though we have representative government, right? And so it's like this midway point there, right? And everyone feels like we should have an egalitarian society out of this, and we clearly don't. Like, reality doesn't reflect that.
Right.
And I think it's easily solvable, but no one wants the solution. And I think most of the problems that we see in elections with, the corruption of politicians, corporate money influence, special interest group money influence, and a lot of the issues that get brought up and beat down that shouldn't be beat down, the lack of funding of education and all these types of things. I think we can solve all of that. I think it's all very easily solved.
I'm always fucking bracing myself when you're ready to present a solution to the masses.
Here's the solution.
Out with it.
Here's the solution. We get rid of elections, right? We don't get rid of representative government, but we get rid of the voting process altogether. And we get rid of campaigning, and we replace all of that with a lottery system where every citizen over the age of 25, your name goes into a drawing, right? Every 4 years, 6 years, whatever the cycle is, we draw out new people for all the positions, and then now Bill is the governor, right? And I know people's initial reaction is like, that's a terrible idea because my neighbor's a moron.
Right.
And I don't want my moron being the prime minister or the president or whatever, right?
I might have a good heart,
but hang on.
Yeah.
If that's your concern, then maybe we should fix the education system while we're doing this. Because if everyone was actually educated, right, everyone actually had access to education that would prepare them for this role, then they would at least know not to fuck things up while they're there.
Right.
And also, you remove a lot of the nationalistic or the racist, antagonistic type political rhetoric, because you're in office for 4 years, but there's a lottery coming up.
Might be the person you hate.
You're not going to get to.
Next.
You're not going to get to hang on to this. So you don't want the backlash. It's legitimately a lottery. There's a probability of the person coming after you.
Yeah, if you throw hate at them, it's turnaround. It's fair play.
Yeah. So be careful, right?
Did you come up with this all yourself?
Yeah.
That's very, very interesting.
People hate it, man.
What?
I've brought it up in like
fucking
political.
hates it? It makes so much sense.
I've brought it up in like political, like legit political arguments, and people go nuts on me about it. But think about this: corporate money has no influence now, because how are you gonna?
How do you pick who's going to be in charge
Yeah.
next time? You got to spread that money around to everybody, make things fair. Sounds a little.
I mean, you could try
sounds
to-
a little communist. Everyone gets a piece from the preparation for it. Yeah.
Right? You could try to juice the guy who's in now, right? The person who's the governor or whatever now. You could try to throw this some cash to get something through, but in 4 years, it's not like this guy gets to hand off the reins to the next person. I said there's no communication, too. It's just a nice, like you're in a Faraday cage, right? A Faraday cage of information. So you go out, new guy comes in, just takes over your office. Like, what the hell's happening here?
I like that. Just that's it. Have your shit out by the end of the day.
Yeah, just get out, get all your crap out of here. I'm coming in. I think it would be at least hilarious. Just your.
It wouldn't be any
some
worse.
guy's
than now.
driving a bus, right? And the elections come out, and he finds out, he's the senator from Massachusetts now. He's like, what the fuck? I gotta go do that.
Yeah, I like. People have said that and I've said it before in the podcast, so my listeners aren't hearing it for the first time. But just that whole, it's like the best person for the job is the one who doesn't want it. Because anybody who wants that position, like, oh yeah, I'm the guy. It's like they're already too arrogant. To think that you're the one who's best suited, like I would never want to be in charge of that stuff. Not just the pressure, but I'm just like,
well, I mean, there's personalities that are obviously attracted to it, right?
Yeah, but I'm just saying, for me to be like, I'm the guy who's going to decide for everybody. I'm the best one. I have the level of empathy and understanding and relatability to absolutely everybody. Like that blows my mind. Like if someone's like, do you really think that you're the best person? No. Well, I don't think at all. And I feel way more enlightened than a lot of people in terms of being able to put my own shit aside and be like, what is in the best interest of everybody? I would still be like, no, I'm probably missing something. I can't read a paragraph without falling asleep.
Well, it's like the Life of Brian thing, right? Where it's like, I'm not your savior. He denies it. He is the savior. It's that whole angle.
I love Monty Python, by the way. I was telling that to my mother. Even just in terms of talking politics, that scene from fucking Holy Grail, where it's like, get up and salute him. It's like, who are you? I'm your king. Well, I didn't vote for you. And they go into this big argument. And I think so many people miss this part of the scene, but they're going up. It's like, well, what made you king? It's like, I don't need your vote. The Lady of the Lake and trusted me with Excalibur, and that made me again. Oh, so you're in charge because some watery tart threw a sword at you. You know what I mean? And all the while they're having this conversation, I think we should have a democracy where there's 2/3 majority. And when he starts going off on the whole thing of democracy, and all the while that they're talking, they're just laid down a blanket and start putting mud in the blanket like they're harvesting muck. Oh, there's some good muck over here. They just start piling it into a bag to take away. I love those guys. I love Monty Python. Ahead of their time, in my opinion. What do you want to talk about now?
It's your podcast, man.
I have no structure.
I just solved government.
Dude, I think that's fucking great. Would you want to be? You wouldn't want to be a politician of any kind.
No. I've been asked to run for things because I know some people that are like heavily political. And I'm like, that would be a disaster.
Do you really think so?
Yeah.
See, I think that's why it's that I like your solution, because you're right. It forces everybody to be like, well, if we are concerned that the next guy getting in is going to be a fucking idiot, let's work on the education system. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it starts pointing out the things that we're not doing, that we like to act like we're doing, right?
Right.
The things that are actually important to the purpose of organizing a society, right?
People like their political, like they're having the political parties thing. I would say if it was any kind of compromise, I would say start there. Get rid of the parties. There are no parties, just individuals. Well, how do we pick the one in charge? Well, we're just starting out. I haven't got it. This is literally just forming my fucking concept now. But I think that but people vote for parties like it's
Sure.
like their fucking sports team.
Sure.
Doesn't matter who the guy. It's my team. It's like that's the guy that you fucking hated
It's
last
basic.
season when he was on a different team, right? Like that guy isn't really. Now he's wearing the jersey and he's your guy. I told it on the podcast already, but Jason voted for the guy in charge now, and it didn't matter that it came out with something that like his best friends. Jocko, right? You met Jocko?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So when Jocko died and we set up the fund from, his sister spent all the money. Jason took her to court because she basically took the money from the kid. Took her to court. There was nothing left. And he was appalled by it. And rightly so. Like, fuck, we took her to court. We got it sold, but she had nothing to give. So all that money was gone. She squandered, her own brother's money. And then like 2 days before the election, it comes out that Doug Ford, same story. His brother died. He mismanaged the money. The widow's got nothing now. And I go, you're gonna vote for Jocko's sister right now. Like and he starts swearing. Looks at me. He's like, it doesn't matter what happens. I'm voting conservative no matter what.
Right.
And I was like, there's something dangerous about that. To be like, no matter what,
people don't like to go. It's basically in group stuff. So like we've and it's conservatism with a lowercase c, not in the political sense that we use the term, right? Yeah. The status quo maintenance conservatism. But people do it on both sides. Like the statement, I am progressive, right, and this is what a progressive does, that's a conservative statement. Yeah. Because you have drawn a pedantic end to which you may ascribe, and then by ascribing to it, you prove your in-group belonging to the group that from which you are both contributing to and draining from it, self-identity and self-worth based on your measure of ascribing to the things, the pedantic end that you are upholding of the thing, right?
This is the first TED Talk I've ever had on my podcast. I'm going to have to replay that and Google every word of that fucking.
What are you talking about?
I'm joking.
But because we do that, we're drawn to that, right? So when people, political parties are very easily turned into those things. Yeah. I mean, I know like a lot of the dudes back in the day when they were founding the U.S., right? Like they weren't for that. They weren't for the party thing. Like, and Thomas Paine especially wasn't. Of course, Thomas Paine was like,
of course. But go on, please.
He was a lunatic. Thomas Paine thought that representatives should come from the upper end of the societies in each town. They moved to Washington. They're there for 4 years and had to move back and then go back into whatever they did from wherever they're from and send a new person, because you lose touch with the society that you're representing.
But you're already on the upper end anyways. So there's a certain level of society that you don't have touch with anyways.
Right. But it was always upper end.
Right.
There was never any mistake. They didn't want everyone to have the vote because they didn't ever want these people over here voting.
Right.
It was never a question amongst those guys.
Well, there's just little things that people don't think of when it comes to like when you're watching the debates and they're talking all about Toronto. It's the whole province. They're talking about Toronto, all the money, federal money and things like that. Toronto's obviously the biggest city. It's going to get a lot of attention. But when they're talking about spending tax money on, widening lanes in big cities, people are, the smart people get that it's like, well, why would some guy paying his taxes fishing in the middle of the fucking Northwest Territories, like, why would he want his tax money going to make Toronto better? You know what I mean? Like, just little things that people like, and that's going back to like why you don't send the fucking upper class. Like, oh, how do I get into my limousine into the airport faster?
Sure,
I need an extra.
But that
lane.
is a good question. No,
right, and that's why having the upper 1%, they've got no touch. They don't know what it's like to struggle. Maybe to have
Right, but that's also like a Platonic point, right? That's a Plato, the philosopher end of society should rule.
Is that where Platonic comes from? You have a Platonic relationship? It's
I don't know.
A Plato relationship?
I don't know.
His fucking name is the root word.
You'd have to double check that.
I don't research.
Because he did some creepy things. You know what I mean? Like personal life. I like to bring that up too, that I don't know how risque I can get on.
You say anything you want.
Okay. I like to bring that up when people start talking about the male toxicity issue, right? And I'm always like, really? You think that Western society might be a little bit male toxic when it's all based off of, the Greeks' concepts of republic and democracy? A group of people that were literally fucking boys in the mouth came up with this, and you think that maybe 2,000 years later, shit's going to get a little sideways? Yeah,
exactly.
You think? Anyway, sorry. My point, fucking boys in the mouth is probably a bit much.
Do you think so? I think it's accurate.
It was at Starbucks. I know that much.
Yeah,
when
they
I
don't
said
like
it
when
there.
you talk about it there.
When I brought it up in
You
line.
really didn't need to get on the soapbox to say it either. I'm sure they could have heard you
it
just
was
well.
it
Everyone was on their phones. You didn't have
It was
to.
a pallet of coffee beans. It was not a soapbox, but you have to get high enough to your voice will carry over the clickety clack of terrible scripts being written. So
We're in Ottawa. No one's writing scripts.
My mind, they
They're
are.
writing government grant proposals. Is what
Oh,
they're
are they?
writing. Yes.
I should probably talk to some of them. What was I talking? Oh, so
Fucking boys in the mouth.
The conservatism thing. We just seen it over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
The ascription to a party or an ideological bent, and then it just becomes that, and then that also defines who you are, and how you see yourself in society,
Right.
and then you double down on that even when it works against you.
Right.
Right. I mean, that's cultural hegemony is the theory on that, which is Antonio Gramsci.
I'll confirm it.
Saying his name
I'm
wrong,
confident
but
confirming that.
Italian dude, imprisoned by Mussolini, went nuts in prison. But when he puts that, when you have that behavior, it's fascinating to me when you see that behavior play out, because what happens when a society starts to not live up to what you've ascribed to, so you ascribe to the conservative or a non-conservative party and you vote for that, and then they get in and then things don't go the right way, people immediately start not blaming the thing they've ascribed to, but they'll shift to a closer, more direct version of that. Or something else that they get self-identity from. They'll shift to that, and then they'll try to align that with whatever the larger societal ethos is. Mm-hmm. So, like, if you take the U.S., where the American dream concept or whatever you want to take, right? Which is really like a human world concept. It just gets titled the American dream somewhere in like the late 1800s or whatever. Just the idea that your kids do better than you. And it's pretty much a human attitude, but it gets lumped.
I thought the American dream was like fucking a house, 2 kids,
house,
car,
2 kids,
marriage.
car. Yeah, so you get specific with that, but that's
Okay.
like the nuclear family, which comes in like the 1950s.
Okay.
Or 40s or whatever, post-war. So,
Get it right, because I won't check.
but the idea of, it's basically your kids doing better,
Right.
and that whole thing, right? So when the larger societal end starts to fail at that, whatever people have subscribed to, and whatever they've kind of promoted, as like, this is the American way and whatever, and this is what we do here, and they're watching that not work. They're not getting those things, right? The world around them is crumbling economically. They're not advancing the way that they thought. They did all the things they were supposed to do, and it's just not working. They're not getting the house. They're not getting the car. They're not getting the whatever. But that's what they bought in. They bought into this Instagram profile of America, and they're not getting it.
I
Right?
called it the template of life. It's
Right.
that you're just not punching the right things, checking the right boxes.
But they're doing it. They're doing all those things, and they're not getting it.
Right.
Go to
Well, no,
school,
I mean,
get a degree.
they're not checking that box. I got the house. I got this. They're working. They're doing everything they were told to do. Right. Go to school. Get a degree. Get a good job.
Right. So then they retreat into something closer.
Right.
And they go, well, what's wrong with that is it doesn't have my Christian values, or it doesn't have my rural values, or it doesn't have my city, more communal values, or it strays from, this Protestant belief I have about community, or this,
So because they can't
philosophical-
achieve it, they have to find a way to.
Well, then they say that's what's wrong with the overarching end, and then they say that needs to be conformed to this Christian value or this rural value system or whatever. So like the Tea Party stuff was a lot of that, right? Libertarian views start coming up in that stuff, right? Where you're going like, I want this thing away from me. I want to be autonomous.
Right.
Which is
because I don't want to be part of the structure.
That's clearly screwed up.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
Yeah.
I'm fine. But the libertarian thing is hilarious, right? Because it's basically oxymoronic. It's I want to be a member of a society by also not being a member of a society, right?
Yeah.
I want to be an individual, but within the society. But the society is what makes you an individual.
Yeah, it's a group of hipsters.
So if you're gonna, like in the U.S., if you're gonna loft up the whole individualism that comes along with the Protestant stuff, going on at the beginning of the U.S. there, if you're gonna go along with that, and then you try to marry this with Locke's concept of an individual, what individualism means, but he's saying that individualism is given to you by the formation of a society. So by being a member of a society, you become an individual. Mm-hmm. Everything outside of that is essentially a wild animal. So your inability to conform to our laws makes you a beast.
Right.
Right? but you are an individual here. But to be that individual, you must be subjected to the laws and the membership of the cohesion of the society. Now, Locke's probably really writing all this just so he can make it look better that we're killing Native Americans left and right. See, they don't pay our taxes. They're monsters.
They're not part of the society. They're animals.
But that goes all the way back to, I think, Socrates or Aristotle, who said that only a beast or a god can live outside of a society. Right. So either you are above the society
or below it,
or you are part of the animal kingdom, right?
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't mind being part of the animal kingdom.
You say that?
I don't like putting on pants.
All right, I take it back. Maybe you would like it.
All right, that's the only counter argument I've been sitting on for years, waiting to make.
Right. So
you really want to be an animal, Josh?
But the idea is that the individual is born in that, right? So to say that you don't want to participate in that thing, and you don't want to fund schools when you have no kids, people make that argument too, right? I don't want to fund roads over there when I don't use them because I'm over here. Right. I don't want my interactions to fund larger society. I want my existence to be a part of that. I want to be autonomous,
want your influence
but
to
I
work on your
still
own life,
want to be an individual because you don't want to be addressed like a wild animal.
Right.
Right. You don't want me as a member of the society walking up to you and not respecting anything about you and treating you as less than.
Right.
You don't want that. You don't want to be a part of the animal kingdom. You want to be, but then at the same time, you don't want to participate in this,
right?
Which is the thing that is creating the individualism that you're trying to maintain.
Yeah.
So it's an oxymoronic position to have. Like you can't have it.
Yeah.
But of course, you bring this up to people on comedy stages, and they just get mad at you. But
talk about dicks.
No, but I'm fascinated by that behavior. But this is also what Gromsky was talking about. When he talks about cultural hegemony, he's talking about how you can take those that behavior, and even with like popular culture that's going on, and you can actually manipulate people into defending positions that are against their own interest based on their subscription to the group that they want to be a part of. And you can wind up with someone going, guns define me in America, and I'm against healthcare. Healthcare, you should work 900 hours a week to be able to afford a basic doctor visit.
Right.
Because that's hard work, and that's what being a man is. And you're like, this is not, what are you doing? Like, it would be better for you also. But no, because that takes away who I am as a person.
I had a conversation with a comic. He was up here doing Absolute, and he was saying how like he was so mad at the idea of them trying to make Obamacare, and which is a different fucking thing than healthcare, but working towards at least seemingly. And he's like, I don't want healthcare. Healthcare's fucking stupid. I'm going to pay more taxes. That's bullshit. And I said, yeah, but you know that you don't have to pay for insurance on top of it, right? I go, healthcare, your taxes pay for it. And I go, like, I said, if you don't mind my asking, what do you pay for health insurance right now? He's like, I pay like 500 and something a month, and that's me, my wife, and both my kids for that much money. Like, you got a good deal on car insurance or something.
Right.
And I go, I don't think that a 4-person family pays, depending, that much in tax for healthcare a month at all. And I go, and here's the best part of it being from the government. There's no insurance adjuster who's looking to find a hole in your policy to not pay for it when you need it. I go, who would you rather have taking care of you? A fucking, a police officer or an insurance protector who,
well, in the U.S., I mean, you don't want the cops involved at all.
No, of course. But I'm just saying, like,
they got a loophole for that policy.
But people they don't get that that's how healthcare works. They're like, oh no, insurance. I don't want healthcare. It's stupid to pay tax. I'm like, it's cheaper overall. If everyone was paying into it, it's cheaper, and no one's trying to fuck you out of the results.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's not like you have an issue. Well, I got to pick and choose. Well, we're not approving your. If you need a fucking pancreas to live, you're going to get a pancreas here.
Well, the U.S. allowed for hospitals to be owned by publicly traded companies.
Yeah, they're working on stuff like that.
That's at the root of. Insurance companies are obviously publicly traded. They have stock, they have profit incentives, all that stuff,
and they report record fucking profits.
But that's at the root of the issue.
Yeah, is
this idea that it should even be a for-profit, publicly traded type business.
Yeah,
healthcare should be.
Yeah, it should be. I honestly think it should be a basic human right.
Sure,
but at the same time too, like, was it you that was talking to me a while back? But even the concept of having like rights is bullshit. Like, nobody has rights. Like, go to another country. Maybe it wasn't you. I'm surprised because usually most intellectual conversations that I have with
I don't know
people
why
are
you
with
say that.
Fuck you. How many you've named people I've never heard of today? You're like, was it
That doesn't mean anything though. You could name people that work at the Dairy Queen down the street. I don't know them. What if all the people I'm naming are just people that work at a Waffle House?
That's fine. They're
How
published.
great would that be?
They're published, which makes me feel
What if
worse
they're
about
not
myself because I never.
What if they're
worked
not
there.
published? It's just something that somebody said to me over grits. You should always fact check.
Then I would
conversations.
probably want to hang myself. I'm like, somebody who's achieved such a little level of fucking career success has got the level of enlightenment of
Hey man,
Aristotle and fucking
you got time to sit
Plato.
around eating grits. You know what I mean? Time to think about
That's
shit.
just basically watered down sand, right? That's what
I
grits.
don't know. I don't even understand it myself.
I just hear it on American television. Grits. I'm like, that doesn't sound.
Oatmeal is.
That's
just-
what we
I just say
refer
oatmeal.
to as like different levels of grit on sandpaper.
Right, yeah.
It's like
80
what is
grit.
it? Yeah, right.
That's how you can order it too.
I want my grits.
I'm gonna get a 320. I'm gonna get a nice fine grit this morning for my breakfast.
That's right. My teeth have felt a little too round on the outside. Filed them some bitches
Like to
flat.
smooth it out.
Yeah, man. I find a lot of this stuff fascinating, but that's what I'm working on in terms of the shit that I'm trying to read. Is I'm trying to learn this stuff. But what were we talking about? I thought it was you that was saying that. Fucking, I've even forgot that.
The rights thing. You should bring something.
Yeah, it's like people think that they like you have the right. This is a basic human right. It's like there's no such thing as rights.
Well, I mean,
when you look at
that's Locke's argument, which is preceded by like Rousseau, right?
There's so much of it. Like people think they have the rights. Like you go to another country and they, you don't have the right to put your hands on me. Like, oh, well, we'll just present that argument. And of course, then naturally they'll respect it because you have rights. It's like, no, you don't. You don't have any fucking rights. That it's an illusion.
Well, the argument is that a civil society creates it,
Right.
right? The organization of the society creates the concept of rights.
Yeah.
So, I mean, man of nature, you could argue has no rights. That is the argument that Locke is making. He comes off of that argument to make that argument so that, I honestly think so that they could, basically justify morally the fact that they were just taking land, right?
Could be. All I know is that at the end of the day, I don't walk around like I've got this protective barrier of rights and this and that because like you watch how quickly someone takes you into a room in an airport you're never seen again. You know what I mean?
Are you threatening me?
Are you
threatening me?
you're in the safest place you could be in.
Are you threatening me?
But you know what I'm saying? Like that's the thing. And you start proclaiming, even in a civilized society, you start proclaiming your rights in a situation where they just decide they're.
Well, go to Mogadishu and scream on the street corner how nobody can mess with you.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, they just laugh in your face. Like that's
what I'm
this
saying.
Is the
It's
most
like-
adorable thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah. I would rather prepare myself mentally and physically for the world that exists versus like, I'm protected. Hey, I like the fact that everything that can kill me in Canada, I can see coming for a while. I don't have to shake up my shoes because there's fucking scorpions and snakes. Let the dog out in the backyard gets eaten by a croc in fucking Florida or whatever. I like being here for that stuff, but I just mean generally speaking, like I don't walk around like, oh, I got rights. I'm like, I'll just try to know what I know about the world and the way it is and operate with around it, I'm going to fix the government. I've wasted enough time kicking that water uphill, right?
Kicking that water up.
I think it was Stanhope who had said that a long time ago. Something he's like, you have an easier time trying to kick water uphill. I'm like, that's a great way to look at it. He put that on an argument. He goes, yeah, that's a good way to look at trying to change the world. Well, who was it? No, I think maybe it was George Carlin was the one who said that the world was bought and paid for a long time ago. So I don't know. I would hope to think that I'm not like, what's the name of that one who was always cynical? Oh, Marcus Aurelius. You're saying he took cynical views on things, whatever, looked at it cynically. I look at it. I don't want to be cynical.
there are far more cynical people than him.
I'm sure.
E.M. Was Coran. I always get his last name wrong. Coran. Cioran. He's Romanian.
I would have got his name wrong too.
Who's
that guy, Josh?
If you have ever been like, if you enjoy really negative, pessimistic things, if you enjoy them, then his book, The Trouble with Being Born, will be hilarious to you.
Okay.
If you react to them in kind of like oh, that hurts.
Yeah.
Then don't read it.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. I'd like to think of myself as a realist because, like I said, I'm not trying to be negative. When Carlin's like the world was bought and paid for, I'm like, I can understand that view, and I don't want to act like the world can be changed. Oh, let me go out and I agree with Gandhi's position of being the change that you want to see in the world. So to influence just what's around you with your actions and positivity and karma and all that, absolutely.
You believe in karma? You're Hindu now?
Sure.
Okay.
I definitely believe that what you put out comes back. because it's just creating around you, right? It's even golden rule stuff, treat others the way you want to be treated. Like I'm basically good for just, be the change, all that shit. Just make the world around you a little bit better. If I can do that, then I'm good with that. And hopefully if everyone took that position of just put out what you want to get back.
I think you can change things. I think things can be.
I do, but I don't think like you can protest. You can stand outside fucking parliament or whatever, protest, and now your change occurs. I don't think that's the way it is because people dismiss.
They dismiss a lot of it, but I think that can reach a level. Some of it, I think, where you get that view, and correct me if I'm wrong. Some of that is because people will stand outside, parliament or wherever and protest something that, 11,000 people give a shit about in a country of 30 million.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And people are like, meh. And you're like, you see constant protests for very small things, and maybe they get movement, maybe they don't. But big things, protesting, I mean, history shows us it works, right? Even if protesting leads to revolution or something like that, you see it works.
But I mean that
what I find fascinating is the number of times that voting for someone doesn't result in change.
Right.
I'm fascinated by that, where it's like you go and you vote for this representative, and the representative gets in, and you want this big sweeping change, and they never lead it without the social momentum there. It's never spearheaded without social momentum with it. Right. But at the same time, like, look at how we follow laws, right? So if we go to, like, there are parts in China, and smoking, like, indoors is going away there, right? Like, they're going to finish this last season of Mad Men, and they're going to put a stop to it, I guess. But you can still walk in somewhere and smoke.
Right.
And it's supposedly you're not supposed to, but you can do it because no one gives a shit.
Right.
Berlin's that way. Like smoking in bars is illegal there. And they passed a law, and literally every bar owner, cops, and everybody was like, that's dumb. And they just continued smoking in bars.
Yeah.
And no one does anything about it. That's the enforcement of laws, the social end.
Right.
It's never we wrote this on a piece of paper, whatever. Unless the society actually capitulates to the law, then it doesn't exist.
Right.
So same with, drugs are illegal. Yeah, until you're in the certain circles where no one gives a shit.
Right.
And then they're not. Right. Yep. It's I don't know. I'm fascinated with that as well. That behavior.
Oh, myself as well.
But I feel like the protesting is kind of where you push that out into the public, and people can go yes or no and join. And if it gets loud enough, then it absolutely does have effect.
It has effect only in the sense, because here's the thing that I've learned, and this comes from the psychology stuff and just like a lot of personal.
Who are you reading psychology wise? I want to know.
Actually, it's just collections of different psychology. It's like entry level stuff. Maybe not entry level, but.
Let me know when you get to like the psychoanalysis thing.
Well, here's the thing: is one of the things that I've learned that's helped me a lot in my life in the last year or so is that you can't change anybody.
You can.
You cannot.
You can.
You cannot.
You can cut a man's arm off. Now he has one arm. He has changed.
Fair enough. You can alter someone's physical. What I'm saying is, in terms of creating the change in somebody, you can't do that. If I wanted you to quit smoking, there's nothing I could make your life miserable. I could definitely create way more resentment from you towards me long before I'd initiate the change of the cigarette. If somebody doesn't want to change, you can't change them. There's nothing you can do to change them. So I look at protesting as just like, you basically either have to make them feel like, well, I want to change because I don't want the results of this. Now, I'm not saying you can't create change. I not really. Not really. You're basically initiating them wanting to change themselves. If you won't quit smoking until you want to quit smoking, right? So it's just that simple.
But if you change my mind on quitting smoking,
but then you
is
changed.
That changing me?
You changed. You have to be open to it. So some protests and some changes. And here's the thing: is the amount of and you can't. One person standing on parliament, it's going to take a big enough thing. I definitely agree that you can initiate change. I'm not saying don't protest. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to be like, negative or pessimistic or critical on it. But I'm like, I would much rather spend my time and effort making the world around me a better place than screaming at the people in charge and hoping that maybe somebody else takes my position. Because I also don't want to create change in my world through like, I don't want to say bullying because it's such a lame word that people throw around, but I don't want to create it through fear and anger. I don't want to make you scared of my group or my position so you change out of fear. I would rather be like, here's my position on things, and this is the good that I'm putting. The people are like, you know what? I like being around that guy. Why are you always in a good mood? Here's why. Because I look at things like this, and that's just how I feel. Oh, fuck. You know what? That makes a lot more sense than just being angry and yelling at people all the time to do what I want them to do. Somebody had said to me recently, those that cannot control their own emotions want to change other people's behavior. And I feel like that's true. I feel like that a lot of the social justice warrior bullshit is people who don't know how to handle things. They want everyone else to change to suit them. And that's the thing.
Some of that.
It's a pointless battle. You can't change other people. So screaming at them doesn't make them want to change. It makes them want to get away from you. It makes them not want to be in that argument, but it doesn't change how they think or feel about it.
Right, but
they're changing just, okay, well, I know not to go around you now. Conversations like this one where we're discussing things that are of importance is what creates change, especially being open to the idea that maybe you don't know everything. Maybe your position isn't infallible and everything like that. Maybe there's something different or something new you can learn from someone else.
Right.
So I like the idea that having conversations about talking about interesting things, talking about things that are taboo and whatnot. I think that goes back to the kind of mind control and keeping everyone under wraps. Is you have things like what are going on right now. People are like, I don't want to talk about it. It was the ice in the fridge. We have this all the time where we're doing conversations here and then the fucking ice we got an ice maker in the fridge. We're doing very well. But the thing is, there's conversations where people are like, oh, don't talk about that. It's just don't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And that's kind of the best way to keep things hostile and everything like that is don't talk about it. Don't have conversations. Because another thing about psychology is when people feel attacked, they attack back. So conversations about, men being worse than women right now or women being worse than men. People not want to talk about transgendered stuff. People not wanting to talk about, gay rights or talking about different cultures. Everybody don't talk about it, right? It creates that no understanding. You're not discussing something. You're not learning. You're not understanding. And to not want to go near it just creates it so that you don't, it's the oldest trick in the book, right? Keep everybody fighting amongst themselves and no one paying attention to what's going on top. But ultimately, I've learned, at least I believe it currently, is that you can't change anybody else. You can only change yourself. So I try to create a good climate around me. I don't want to do things out of anger or hatred or whatever, because understanding it's all just fear. And I certainly don't want to influence anybody else out of fear, which is something I used to do all the time. I used to get in fights with family members and stuff like that. I would try to provoke change in them by insulting or belittling. It wasn't the strategy that I was aware of at the time, but I tried being like, hey, you say you want to be happy, do this. And then it wouldn't work. So you provoke person, basically point out other people's flaws. And it's funny because I have roommates here that'll do that. I know that their heart's in a good place. They want good things from me, but I'll have roommates who will be like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be doing that. If you want this, then you shouldn't do that. And it's like, well, it's great. You can tell me all these things, but I'm not going to change because of what you're saying. In fact, when you start insulting, you're not provoking a change. What you're doing is making me not want to talk to you and not be around you. Do you know what I mean? So
right, but then how do you account for the the long running power of shame?
I'm not saying it doesn't get results. People wouldn't do it if it doesn't work, but it doesn't it doesn't bring you closer to the other party.
No,
that's what I'm saying. So you might get your change out of it, but did you get it the way you wanted? You know what I mean? Like if you're in a fight with a family member and they're like, fine, take the car, and they throw their keys at you. Great, you got what you wanted, but are you happy? Did that make the relationship between the two people any better? And that's what I'm saying is at the end of the day, do you want to I would rather have good relationships with people and let them be their own person than to be like, I need you to think the way I think so badly that I'm willing to end the relationship. Deepak Chopra had a book called The Ultimate Happiness Prescription. And in that, one of the things was give up the need to be right. Because every time you have to be right, that means that someone else has to be wrong. And to make somebody else feel wrong is to hurt a relationship infinitely more than just that pride of being right in a situation. And the world is made up with many different perspectives and views. So two people can have conflicting views and still both feel right or whatever on the subject. I've actually tried to take the words right.
The problem with some of those things, though, is that sometimes people are wrong. So it sounds funny, but if your view is slavery's good and my view is slavery's bad, then I'm going to say objectively, by any ways that we can construct to measure this, that you're wrong.
Right.
And I don't respect that point of view.
But do you think fighting with that person will change their mind? To argue with them would change their mind?
It's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible because if they hold that view, if you can have a civil discourse, you can try that,
But that change has to occur in them. They have to be open to the idea. So you're sitting and talking with someone who thinks slavery is good, and I'm not trying to be argumentative. What I mean is, they think slavery is good. You think it's wrong. I happen to share your view, but the idea is that it's not good. I share your view.
I can't believe that you think slavery is good, Jim.
What I'm saying is that he already, odds are, you're not the first person to say slavery is not good to this guy. Secondly, he has to make the change within himself to be open to something other than what he thinks already. So that change that you're not in control of has to already occur in him. So if he's not ready to make the change, there's nothing that you can say to him, theoretically, that's going to make him go, oh, well, I got to be open to it. It's like people who want to argue their side, but they're not open to the other side of it, right? That's where the whole line, when the student is ready, the master appears. It's not that this information isn't available, that the things that you want to learn aren't there. It's as soon as you decide that you're willing to learn, that's when you become receptive. The master is always there. But it's not because they're not saying the thing to you. It's because you were never ready to learn it. And so that's the change that has to occur. That's where I say that you cannot change anybody else. You can influence, you can push it, you can take away their cigarettes and crush them. They'll smoke behind your back. You can watch them 24 hours a day, but now all you're doing is making them feel like you're watching them like a parent. They're going to start resenting you because you're making them feel like they're not independent, like they don't have choice. So you might get the result that you want. I made sure you didn't smoke, but you've damaged the relationship infinitely more than what it is. So I've gotten to that point where, yeah, protesting and shit like that can work. You can get your results, but the ends doesn't justify the means, in my opinion. That's where I'm at on the whole trying to change other people thing.
Right. So take it away from the smoking thing. Go back.
We'll talk about comedy at some point.
No, we won't. No, we won't.
I'm having fun. I hope everyone's still here.
Go back to your slavery point, or to my slavery point.
To your slavery point. And I apologize if I misunderstood. But I'm just saying that in terms of if he's not open to it.
Right. But see, the focus on the relationship, right? If you find out that someone you're friends with is super pro-slavery. Say they're a white supremacist or something like that, right? And you try to address that through civil conversation.
Right.
And you can point out all the fallacies in their concepts, but this is what they've ascribed to, it's how they define themselves and whatever. And you go, well, I can't change this person. All I can do is lead my life, right, to maintain the relationship I have with this person, right?
Okay.
Attacking them is not going to do it and whatever. At some point, I disagree with you because at some point I'm like, fuck the relationship.
I'm not saying you have to keep the relationship, but I'm saying that if I just make that, like, if I can't change that person, if I can't change their opinion, because that we just understanding what I understand about it, and I could be wrong. That's another thing that I'm willing to do. Is I'm willing to always put myself in a position where I'm open to new information. But I'm saying that I don't need to keep the relationship as a friend. I'm not like I'm going to keep this. Well, let's just stay friends. But what I mean is that I don't share that view, and I can't change that person. I can make a change. The change I will make is I will spend less time with you because I don't share your views, and I don't want to make what your view more palatable. Like, oh, I can just be this kind of guy and everyone will still be around me. Like, that's where I say, like, you can't change other people. You can only change yourself. So it's the kind of thing, like, if we had an abusive relationship where you're always taking advantage of me, I would say to you openly and directly, I need you to stop doing this because I don't like it. It makes me feel disrespected. You know, and if you don't do it, I would say, I need you to make that change because if you don't make that change, I have to make a change, and that'll be I don't spend time with you anymore. So that's the dynamic, is that you can't change someone, but I can offer information up and go, cool, now the ball's in your court. That change will not happen. It's not up to me. It's up to you. And if it doesn't, then I can only change myself, and that change will be that I'm not around you anymore. Right. So it's not to say you're going to get necessarily the results that you want, but the idea is that you have that. Okay. That's what I'm saying. So with that guy,
we're talking two streams of two different things. So the behavioral thing that you're talking about is about, it really is more about personal relationship stuff and behavioral things and correcting that you want to, see somebody doing something hurting themselves. It kind of falls into that.
I'm not trying to
social change, which is a little bit different because social change deals with mass mentality and things like that.
Right. But
I think you absolutely can force a societal change.
But I don't want to force it, is what I'm saying. I feel like if you're forcing it, it's out of fear or anger. I don't think that you can force something out of love.
Right. But
I think that's more of influence, and influence comes from.
Well, Gandhi would argue that you could.
Yes, he would.
But then Mandela would
kick his fucking ass. Sorry.
Mandela.
We needed a laugh break at some point.
Mandela counters the argument that he says that nonviolence only works.
In a cage match?
No, nonviolence only works when your enemy sees you as human.
That's a good point.
We need to take a break.
Do you need a break?
Yeah, can we pause?
Yeah, let's pause. Let me see if I know how to do that. I hit play
Just
pause.
Delete this last hour.
No, I'm kidding. Fuck you.
With all the country stuff too, all the stuff, hunting and the fishing. I don't go anymore. I don't. I had a bad experience hunting a few years ago though. My father's place, middle of nowhere, right? 20 yards off the house with a tree line. I'm cutting through out of nowhere. I am face to face with a cobra. Yeah, Alabama cobra what? That's why I'm freaked out. It shouldn't be there. First thought in my head, I have to ricky-ticky-tavi this little situation immediately, right? Which means kill it, if you forgot the story, right? You're face to face with a cobra, you have to kill it. You do not want to be a cobra's bitch. No. G.I. Joe half the battle, I remember, right? So. He was the bad guy, yeah. Luckily, I have a shovel near me. I drag the shovel over. I'm right there. I'm going to kill the cobra. I'm going to kill him. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I stop. I start thinking. I just seen all three, they were out at the time, Harry Potter movies back to back. I'm no longer sure this is actually a cobra or a very powerful wizard. And I'm freaking out because you can't kill a powerful wizard with just a shovel. Not unless you're Mississippi and you're black. That's a different kind of wizard there. Wow, anti-Klan joke. Nobody over there, really? There's a meeting going on tonight. My Latino brothers, follow me. We'll make a break for it. And you know, a lot of times when you have white people in the room, they will not laugh at that joke. And it's not because you're racist or in the Klan. I know why. Okay, first off, it goes by kind of quick, kind of a weird way. And you get stuck in that last little part going, what did he just mean by that? I realize the bald head, white skin, not helping anything. I realize. My favorite, you get the eye twitch, so that's my favorite. But the eyes will go back as they rattle backwards through the joke to come back forwards with the joke. I was like, is he just... You're saying that Harry Potter... is a racist? I'm like, yes, I am. You ever watch the movies? Two black dudes in the whole school, both of them horrible at magic. Not a single teacher in that school is black. What's Harry saying? Black people can't do magic? What about voodoo, Harry Potter? You ever heard of that? Look it up. What about 50 Cent? He had like the magic stick or something, right? That's a rap song, honkies. We'll get you a copy, don't worry. What about Magic Johnson, Harry Potter? It's in his name. And that guy's had AIDS for what, like 45 years now? Abra-ca-frickin-dabra, Harry Potter. Hey, thank you guys for letting me hang out, man.
So we're back after another break. Of course, Matt and I talked.
You talked about smoking for 30 minutes, and I'm sitting here going like, come on, man, you can't bring up the joy of cigarettes.
You were outside smoking. I didn't even join you outside.
You don't.
Nope.
You pulled it. You pulled a Niall Seguin.
What's Niall doing?
Niall Seguin will not go. Like if we're at a club and I'm like, I'm gonna go smoke. Come outside. And he'll be like, no, I will not watch you smoke.
Is that? Oh, really? I don't care.
Because I have to put up that. I have to put up with that when we go get coffee, and I have to watch you smoke. I'm not going to watch you smoke.
Oh,
he will not. He will not do it. And I even say that. Come watch me smoke. And he's like, no, I will not do it. He wants no part of it. He will not support my behavior.
I have no issue. I don't give a fuck what you.
Wow.
I remember you having a cigarette outside Montreal.
So much for your karma. What?
Agent Orange is a motherfucker. While some chick is fucking hacking up a lung. You've said some of the funniest throwaway fucking things that I can remember. And I laughed
in reaction
so hard that night. Just some homeless girl. Agent Orange is a motherfucker.
I'm an awful person inside my head.
No, but it's funny stuff, and in all fairness, she probably couldn't understand it. We've had some fun when we were in Montreal. That's where you showed me Scrivener. But at the same time, we were walking down the street. I actually told somebody this story like 2 days ago when I was driving them because of the bald head. We got asked if we wanted to fucking do a survey for $50 gift certificates at the winter clothing store.
Yeah,
and I like an idiot actually answered their questions seriously. Whereas you put all sorts of goofy shit on there. It was for the store like Arc'teryx, which was way too much floor space versus how much inventory.
It's 7
actually
items.
had.
They were all like $1,000. We bought toques, and they were
like Apple stores would be considered like hoarders.
Yeah.
Places compared to how much shit was in there.
It was a $60 hat.
$50, toque.
So ridiculous. It was great though. I mean, it was strong.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, fuck. Thank God it was free. I mean, we had nothing better to do than to take an hour-long survey for free toques. Because weren't we walking down the street because you were looking for one anyways?
Yeah.
You're like, I need a hat, and then that just fell into our lap.
Because I don't have any hair. Hats are haircuts for me at this point in my life. If I get a new hat, it's
new style.
I got a new style. I got a new look.
Do you still have that hat? I think you were saying you.
I don't know where it is.
Really?
Sorry.
You're a minimalist now, right? Some pop culture.
Is that a pop culture thing? Yeah.
Minimalism? Is that pop psychology?
No, that's a trend. But it's
Yeah, Matt was telling me that my Deepak Chopra shit was like pop psychology.
I was just annoyed.
Yeah.
I'm annoyed by Deepak Chopra. It's the spiritualism and it's a lot of, correlation stuff. He does a lot of books and things that are, more like spurious correlation. Like these correlations are interesting. Let's explore it. And I don't necessarily disagree with that.
Right.
But it's, he draws some conclusions that I'm like, that's not really.
Well, for me, the idea that like there are multiple, like I said, I've only read like
The
half
point of view
the
stuff
book.
I agree with, but
Yeah, like there's different points of view, so
gets
you don't
into
have to make
some-
someone else feel wrong. Like I listen to that, I'm like, that makes sense. I don't
Yeah.
need to be
And,
right so
well-
much that someone else feels like shit.
right.
because
But
of
that's so like if you take the postmodernist stance, right, and you take a postmodernist deconstructionist view, and you get there are multiple points of view, and all points of views are equally valid, right?
Right.
And I go no. Because if your point of view is that we should make ice cream out of people, your point of view is wrong. It's fucking wrong, man. We should not do that. That's a terrible idea.
You know what? I knee jerk agree, and then I go, you know what? Rush hour is really long. Rush hour is really long, and we have cattle that would be. We don't need to make new cows, right? I'm not saying I actually
understand.
think that, but
I
you
know.
know what?
I know what you mean.
I bet you under the right circumstances with the right person helming that argument, I'm like, all right, I could see where you might have a point.
I understand where
Like NASCAR.
I understand where that argument comes from.
That's all I'm saying.
The multiple point of view thing. Some of that comes from the inability to have an objective point of view, like this idea that there's an objective truth to be had, right? In societal terms, I know you can go back to at least Franz Fanon talking about colonialism, right?
I hate you so much. For
And
all your names I don't know.
Isn't it great?
That's what you can go to Franz. Dude, at the end of this podcast,
You could
you're
literally
you could
do
be like,
this-
you know what? I've made up 90% of these names.
I have. I've made up all of these names.
asshole.
These are all fake.
It's not fair that you abuse my trust and your knowledge.
You can do this with anything. You can just start naming baristas. Well, it's like Sally Barista said.
It's like Skylar Thompson
Always
says.
slow drip the. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make it. It just points of reference, right?
Right, of
It's
course.
Just offloading the responsibility of the thing I'm going
Posturing.
to say.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, it's posturing. It's
That's just definitely asserting his dick dominance of. You have a bigger mental cock than I do. I get it.
my library. I have a library card. Several cities.
have a
I hate to
library
brag.
card.
I hate to brag. Some people bring up their credit score.
We're environmentally friendly. We don't have the plastic here.
We don't have the plastic
Yeah,
here.
we're a little more on trend than you
We're a
are.
little bit better. We're better. Slightly better than you.
Some dude whose name I've already forgotten.
Yeah. No, he points out with or he makes the argument.
Say the name again just to make sure you're not making that.
I want to say Franz Fanon, if I'm saying it correctly.
Franz Fanon.
Fanon. He and I could be wrong. I get names wrong constantly because I get them just from reading, and like I never hear anyone say it. And then
Oh, okay.
I
You were
forget-
talking about the pronunciation, not
Yeah.
so much the actual name, but just whether you're pronouncing
Yeah, I could see the
it.
name, but who knows? Who knows?
For me, I'm like, I can't remember if it was, this person or that person. I'll actually not
okay.
be certain of the source.
when you never know, always pick a ridiculous person and just ascribe things to them. That's always fun.
Yeah, the best person to have the human rights. It was Bill Cosby who said, "What?" There's a lot of people who have famous people's names who are not like. Did you know like one of the biggest world authorities on whiskey is named Michael Jackson?
No, I didn't know that.
He's dead now.
Which one?
Both.
Oh,
Both, but it's just funny because it's like I have this book. It was like World Whiskey by Michael Jackson. I was like, I don't know if I would want. So there's always.
what's weird is he wore the glove. The same guy. He also wore the glove.
He actually stole it from
the other
from
way
the
around.
other Michael Jackson.
Unbelievable.
He didn't want to get his fingerprints on the glass and tainted the fucking.
Yeah, that's where
Right?
it comes from.
It's like when you touch
whiskey.
a halogen bulb, it's going to fuck shit up somehow.
I'm going to take your word on that. I don't
I
normally
appreciate
touch
it.
bulbs.
Thank you for the trust.
What were we talking about? Objectivity. So
I guess.
the objective point of view in a social sense, right? What is right and what is good in the society is just the view of the ruling authority, right? That's what the objective view is. And the subjective view that Fanon is arguing about is the fact that you have these voices in the society that have they're already dismissed because they're asked to capitulate to conform to the objective view, which is in this case the colonial powers view of what a civil society is. So anything that's not part of the civil society, no matter how long it's been around, no matter what the reasons, is less than, right? So when you realize that that's just a subjective view, right, of that group, and not a holistic view that is taken into account all views, and then from that derives some objective good, right? You get this multitudinous concept of subjectivities, right? So all subjectives are equal in the sense that they should all be weighed. They're not equal in the sense that they are all right.
Right.
And we take that often to mean like, well, everyone has a point of view and they should be listened to and they should be considered. Yes. And then they should also be judged and dismissed if they're insane. Because sometimes your personal subjective point of view, I can give it credence, right? We can create, the origin of the term safe space, which is from education.
Right.
The origin is that, we let this person in the class who doesn't understand the subject matter or has some point of view on the subject matter speak without
judgment or
deriding them, and then walk them down the line of the argument to understand how they arrived at that point of view and why they have that point of view and does this weigh or change, whatever. It does not mean that their view of the thing is correct.
Right.
You can have a subjective point of view that is incorrect. You can want to make ice cream out of people, and you're fucking wrong.
Right. I feel like it's like the customer is always right kind of thing. And people misunderstand what that means. So as a small example, customer is always right doesn't mean that what they're saying is always correct. It's the idea that the customer always has the right to feel validated or important. So the idea is like you come in and the customer is like, hey, I wanted to say going forward, I think they use too much salt on whatever it is, restaurant, maybe small example. But the idea is that you can go, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is definitely not a customer's always. But to say no problem, I'll make sure I let them know. Thank you so much for the feedback. They can turn around and say absolutely nothing. But at least in that moment, you made the customer feel validated in what they were saying. They felt important. Their feelings felt validated. Like that's what the customer is always. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what the customer is always right means. Doesn't mean that what they're saying is correct and you need to say you're absolutely right. Well, let's do that on you. It's just the idea that everyone has felt respected or whatever. And it's the same with the safe spaces. You almost want to take, okay, like you go ahead, you feel the comfort to be able to say what's on your mind or whatever it is. And then if it's quote unquote incorrect or whatever, then we walk it down. Like that's the thing is I always want to hear if someone.
That's the origin. That's not what it's become. It's fascinating what it's become.
Right. Oh,
what it's
God,
become
it's
is I shouldn't have to
stupid.
hear anything that I feel is an attack.
Right. And that's not. And that's the thing is what I feel is an attack. You know what I mean? Like
and
it's
it's
like
not
so
that. It's
I
that,
have to be accountable for your response, and that's another thing that I've been learning too is that you're not responsible for anybody else's feelings. You can feel however you want. Again, that comes from the multiple perspectives. As I say one thing and you've interpreted it something different, that's not on me. I'll say let me know what you've understood. You think it is?
No, I'm listening and processing.
Okay, yeah. So because my thoughts are like if I say something, right? It happens mostly in relationships. A lot of this stuff comes from being in a relationship and trying to convey something and have that person receive it the way you're trying to convey it, right? Which is difficult. It's a very difficult thing, especially in relationships when everyone brings their insecurities and shit like that. And they're
Is this what's leading you to read like the stuff now?
It was the catalyst. It was the catalyst for it. But what I'm saying is I'm more and more fascinated by the whole concept that, like because people said for years, it's like something I grew up and I didn't understand. It's like, you can't love anybody else until you love yourself. And I'm like, that's bullshit. Of course I can like this person and not like myself. But it's like, well, no, but if you don't value, again, that's one of those things. There's a lot of like fun little cliches that people throw around. Everyone nods and feels good and they post it on their fucking Instagram and then they go about their day. But to understand, and I didn't understand it for the longest time. I'm like, I don't get that. There's lots of people that I care for that I don't care for myself. In order to properly be able to be in a relationship and care for someone, you have to respect yourself, because if you don't, then you bring shit into the relationship, like insecurities and things like that. So
the communication, and you're talking about semiotics. So the inability to that's the field that studies that. So the in communication. So you have speaker, listener, signaler, and signified, right? Which you may come across those terms in psychology as well. But it's
I'm just trying to catch up, man.
No, but like if I speak, right, and I know I'm speaking to someone that speaks English, so we can use the middle ground between our thoughts of English, right, to communicate these things, and we can work within a level of English, right. So all of your jokes, when you're bringing up references or words I don't know or whatever, you're making jokes about it, but you're narrowing the field of English that we can use for the communication, right? Yeah. In the same way that we do that with a specialty of vocabulary, if you're talking to someone about, electrical engineering, or you're talking about, certain occupational or fields of study, words have a specific connotation in those fields, right? And you can use the specialty of vocabulary in those fields to, have faster conversations, right? You don't have to explain all this bullshit. You can just drop this word, that word, whatever. So, in a one-to-one conversation, we have two people, and we have this tertiary thing in the middle that we're using, right? But we both have a thought. You have a reaction to the thought or a new thought to add, right? In this back and forth of signaler and signified, and speaker, listener, and that becomes speaker, and then the shift again.
Go ahead.
Oh dear.
Just letting Colin know that we're doing this here.
When you have that back and forth, the concept of noise comes in here, right? So the concept of noise is what you've heard the term "cut through the noise," right? You've heard that. This is marketing jingoism almost, right? Yeah. You have to get a message that cuts through the noise. Well, this comes from semiotics and the idea of cutting through the noise. The noise is all the things that you bring to an interaction, all the things that you bring to communication.
Right.
Now, the more you understand about the other person, the target demographic in marketing, right? Or just the person you're in a relationship with. The more you understand about them, the more you can position your message to cut through
the noise,
the baggage that they bring, the presuppositions they may hold, right? And you can deliver that message. So you may know that if you say to someone you're dating, you can use just like a word and say it the wrong way, and they lose their shit. Like they say something that you think, shit, I'm trying to think of a good example. I can't think of a good example. You're being like your mother, right? As a backhanded whatever. Right. But you could say that and not mean that in a backhanded way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But that's how that's going to be taken, right? So you phrase it differently, right? In the same way that you phrase things differently if you're, the manager of a club or something, and you're talking to the wait staff, and you're trying to motivate the wait staff for sales and these kind of types of things. You can phrase it based on their motivation, which is to make money selling drinks, and you can phrase it differently to the comic on stage who has a different motivation, right? You can take all these things into account and have the same message delivered differently to people, and you're playing that game of trying to cut through the personal noise that someone brings to the conversation.
Right. I find professional conversation is added noise. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like the way people speak now. It seems so sterile and diluted. Like
what
when
do you
people
mean?
are speaking, just the wording. Like, I mean, I'd struggle to come up with an example right now. In
like
terms
the
of being
buzzword stuff.
Just our position on this particular thing is blah blah blah. It's like I feel like people speak more and say less. I feel it's politicians as well. They'll say a bunch of things, and you're like, there was no response in that. That was just a bunch of talking in a circle that really led nowhere. They're using a lot of big, terms and things like that I understand. But it's just But at the end of the day, you put it all together and define it. It's like that you just didn't say anything. You just walked right around to where you started.
You see it like in business meetings where people will drop, we're working in silos right now. And what we really need is an interdepartmental communication structure that facilitates everyone's point of view to be weighed in before we need to fucking communicate better.
That's right. But that's what I'm saying. They speak more, and I think that the more people use that type of language,
it's an adherence test.
Well, not only that, but it's so much more open to interpretation. And so if you're trying to communicate something, you've done an inferior job of that because now you've left so much open to interpretation as opposed to just, okay, so what do you mean by that?
No, they're trying to show group belonging. So I can memorize the terms of the specialty of vocabulary, and we can drop all the terms, and it looks like I fit in the group.
Sure.
Even without understanding what any of it means. And then we can end up in a pander box where everyone's sitting around, like in a cartoonish, puppety type way. We're all just saying, silos and this and whatever the new term is.
But when they're addressing the public, that's not part of your group. But the idea is it's just, I feel like it's people trying to leave backdoor exits into conversation. Like I find that people are looking for the subtext because what you just said doesn't really say a whole lot on its own. You have to know, like you said, be a part of the group, whatever. But at the same time, you have to know the subtext of what they're saying. Maybe subtext isn't the right word, but the idea is that they're trying to communicate something. That those words alone, you have to kind of know everything underneath all of them, not their meaning, but just when it's used like this, then kind of in a corporate environment, it means, and that's what I'm saying is like, you're basically, rather than being direct, and I feel like being direct, not blunt, but being direct is is a very true form of honesty. One of, if you're direct with someone, then it's honest. Maybe not. Maybe a bad example. I mean, only in the sense that when you're being honest and direct, it's a lot harder to be like, oh, you misunderstood what I said. Because like, no, I was direct. I told you what I need. Matt, I need you to stop blowing smoke in my face. Matt, see, I find that when you're doing your exhales in the vicinity of everyone, that's a very communal space. Like just like, hey, dude, I need you to stop blowing the smoke in my face. I'm not being rude. I'm asking for what I need. I'm being honest. I'm being direct. And I'm saying that people are getting less and less. I guess there's even better ways of being direct than bluntness, but just people are not as direct. The language I find is diluted. It feels even very disingenuous the way people speak in a professional environment or whatever it is. And I get that it has to be sort of accessible. I think that I don't know. I got so many fucking opinions and we don't have enough time for me to talk about everything I hate. But I'm just saying, I find that there's so much bullshit, man, so much sterile. Sure. I enjoy this conversation because despite the fact that there's an intellectualism to it, maybe that's the wrong word too, because I'm not fucking intellectual. All I know is that I'm fascinated by the idea of being open and looking at things from different angles, whatever. I just find that the like you were saying, that language, and because in communication it's that thing in the middle of you, and you have to learn how to basically work and adapt to the barrier, the space between people, whatever. And I just find I'm very fascinated by communication. I have always been someone, when I was younger, I had I don't know if it was a learning disability or what, but I've always not found it easy to just understand what everyone else understands. I question everything, and I if the more direct for me, the better. So I've always been a more direct person.
Directness works with. I mean, it works with some things. You tell somebody, stop smoking, stop blowing smoke in my face, right? Yeah. And I understand, like you get into more complicated concepts, and you start going like, can you say this directly to me? But some of them, no. Like if you're talking in abstracts and stuff, there's a reason it's not direct.
And I'm fine with that if the nature of the conversation goes that way. I just mean that for me, I was always someone who's like, the more you're trying to be diluted, and like I said, it feels like you leave yourself open to many back doors to get out of something that you've said. Do you know what I mean? I think
there are techniques of that. There are techniques in debate and things like that. And, posturing and safe harboring something.
Right, because people will say something. They want you to feel that response, that passive aggressive thing, and then they want their back door that they can step in. No. You still felt that pain or hurt of what they said to you. Right. But now they don't have to be accountable for what they said, and they don't have to. Well,
that's playing the text, subtext, literal, figurative within a communication.
Right.
So I say to you, it's great to see you, right? I can say that in a way with body language and other things like that. That means go fuck yourself, right? And you can pick up on that. And then you can complain that I was a dick to you. And then I can go, I just said
it's great to see you.
It's great to see you. Well, it's the way he said it. You hear that said, right? Yeah. And when you're stuck in that into the text and the subtext, right? That literal figurative combination of the use of communication. Yeah. And it's because you have thought, and then you have to translate thought to a delivery mechanism, beginning with language and other things. And then you are setting that up to be received, which is where you have the problems of noise. And then you have retranslation, right? And then you have response, right? In the flow of a communication. And I could literally do an entire thing just on this. I mean, it's
fascinating
such
shit. Yeah.
It's so insane. But when I'm doing shows in other countries where I have an audience that English is their second language, right? There's certain vocabulary limitations. There are certain reference limitations and whatever. And what you start to realize is that there are a lot of things that are in the structure that are something reference, right? And this is where the laugh is supposed to come. And the best example is a pun. So a pun you can't translate. You can't translate a pun because all a pun requires is that we both adhere to the same depth of vocabulary to understand the juxtaposition and why those two things are funny being said that way together. You translate that from English to French or to Mandarin, and it's gone. It's just gone. Yeah. It would take a paragraph to explain it, and it's no longer entertaining or funny at all.
Right.
And the reason is because nothing's actually being said with a pun. There's nothing actually to communicate. We are dealing completely inside of that tertiary thing that we've agreed to communicate with, and we're basically playing a game of an adherence test, showing that we both understand the language at the same level, and that's where the humor can take place. Now, remove this from just talking about language and make this about cultural reference, right? We can play the same game with having similar experience, right? So two white guys that grew up in Wisconsin make a racist joke that they both find funny, and they both find funny because they have similar backgrounds, similar experience, whatever, right? And they believe certain similar things, and they can find that funny. You remove them from that context to a larger context, right? A more diverse context, and it starts to fall apart. It's no longer funny, it's offensive, it's whatever, right?
Right.
Do the same thing with pop culture references. If your joke is something Beyonce, and that's supposed to be the funny part, right?
Yeah.
And you go to Spain or somewhere, and they don't know who the hell Beyonce is because they have their own entire pop culture system in Spanish, it doesn't work. Right. You can.
It's not relatable if it's not understood.
And the reason it doesn't work is because, again, nothing is being communicated. Now, if material wise, if what you're trying to communicate is what's funny, and you must find the words to do it in English or while performing or whatever, then you can take that concept and you can translate that to Spanish or to Mandarin or to a lower level of vocabulary. And English is a second language level of vocabulary. And you can make it work, and it will still work. So, when I was doing the project the other year, where I did the 13 months and 30 countries and whatever, the 100 and something shows and whatever, right? That's when I'm writing that hour. That's what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with like this is a funny thing, but if I do this in the Netherlands, they don't know what T-ball is, right? So, am I really dependent on T-ball as the funny thing here?
Yeah.
And if I am, then I'm just making a joke that's essentially no different than a pun. It's a pander of reference knowledge.
Right.
I'm not actually communicating.
You were the one
anything.
who told me that. Is that essentially all forms of was it all forms of communication or something, or essentially pandering or something like that? Well, how was it? How did you phrase it?
I don't know. I don't know what I said. I don't know what you're talking to me about. But
sorry, you were saying that basically to try to communicate anything is to pander or whatever. Something
it
like
can
that.
be. It can be.
Okay.
When you're playing this game of an adherence test thing, right? My argument is that you don't have to do that. My argument is that you can communicate something that's more important, and you can make it funny, or you can make it whatever, right? You could communicate it in other forms other than telling jokes, obviously,
Right.
And it can be translated, but only if there's something to be communicated, and that's where what is funny to you has to be, if that is your goal, to make it something that is
Universally
communicable across some other thing. So. Like when I do the joke about, not knowing the languages and going in and I'm pointing in the store and it's silly and it's, like instead of learning, that whole thing, right? Doing that instead of actually learning Cantonese to ask for something in the store. Like that can be universally funny, and I can do that with so few English words. I can do it to an audience that doesn't really understand a lot of English.
It's mostly just pantomime.
It mostly is. But even when I start talking about, cultures and people adhering to cultures and how I think it's silly and how they should be mixed together and all that, when I'm doing all that heavier stuff, it still works. But I have to avoid certain things. Like if I say, I don't understand homogeneous societies, right? I prefer something that's more heterogeneous. I have to give the definition of those words, not because the audience is dumb, but a lot of times it's because the audience doesn't know those words, because if they were going to read anything that discussed homogeneity or heterogeneity, they would have read it in their native language. They're not going to read that in English.
Right.
So you have to be like, I don't like when things are all the same. Homogeneity is not something I like. And you do it very quickly like that, and then it escalates forward, and then you don't have to remove that, word, from
and
you
the just taught them something.
And you just everybody's learning together. But I find that fascinating, and we take that back to the semiotics argument. We're talking about two speakers, or one to many or one to one, in a speaking thing, and you start looking at how we often say something, and then someone's like, "What the fuck? Why would you?" And you're like, "I didn't mean it that way," right? And you start realizing that what they bring to this, whatever the issue is, whatever we're past language, right? So we're at reference level, emotional level, point of view, whatever. And it's the lack of considering the listener that the speaker makes the mistake of.
Right.
But then the listener often makes the mistake of a lack of consideration of the motivation of the speaker. So we start reacting just in that box because we are using language not to communicate. We're using it to not have to communicate. So you walk into a store and you go, "Give me a pack of cigarettes." and then you leave, and you wouldn't recognize that dude if you saw him 20 minutes later on the corner magically, right?
Okay.
You wouldn't even realize that because you didn't pay any attention to him as a person. But if you remove language and you have to walk in and make eye contact and do this pantomime gesturing game to get your pack of cigarettes, and you saw that person an hour later, you'd be like, "Yeah, that's the dude from the store."
Deeper connection kind of thing.
Because you had to do this dance, right?
Right.
But we often do that. We carry that over from what makes things easy for society to run to having a language that's agreed upon, and we go about our day, and things are in this language. While that helps us, we also end up falling into that trap where on a one-to-one communication, we can talk and essentially not process anything. We're not even actually thinking. We're not taking what someone's saying, processing it, and reacting. We're literally taking the words and we're focusing pedantically on the words, and then we're reacting to that. So you say, or I say, "Well, Josh, you're a fat guy," and you're like, "Hey, man, fuck you, dude."
This is how you're gonna tell me?
Right? You're like, "Hey, fuck you, how dare you?" And like, I didn't mean anything by that. You're not considering my motivations. You're focused on the word fat, right? Now, I might be saying the most positive thing ever, and you can't hear it, right?
I'd love to adapt that perspective.
Like, I wish I was a
Josh,
fat
you're
guy.
a fat guy.
I wish I was a fat guy. I wish I was a fat guy. Right? I don't know. I don't know.
A fat chick like me in a painting years ago.
What'd you just say?
I said, you wish you were a fat chick in the painting? That's when it was a good thing. Look at that. Fat chicks were hot. Sorry.
Well, somehow I'm trying to make this point.
No, I get it. No, and I love it. And I think too, because I've tried to explain to people for years, it's like, why is it that your buddies can give you shit and rip on you? You know what I mean? It's like, hey, for starters, simplicity. We know that their motivation is not to hurt. That's when a stranger comes up to you, hey, you're fat.
Right.
Because there's no connection with the kind of person. Just how could you fucking say that?
Right.
But like you said, there's a deeper connection amongst friends that goes beyond just the words.
You're
itself.
able to understand the motivation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that makes perfect sense. That's a much better way, because I used to just tell people, like, why is it okay when your friends insult you? Generally, not just myself. And it's like, it's because we know their motivation. They're not trying to hurt you.
Right.
In fact, even in this moment, their motivation is to get that response, and I'm not giving it, motherfucker.
Right.
You're not getting it.
Well, my ex would get worked up about whatever, and she'd yell. Right?
About whatever. I wasn't
who knows?
listening.
Who knows? Who knows? No way to know. No, she would yell, right? She'd get mad. And she's mad about something. She'd get frustrated, and she would just just vomit out, just, "This motherfucker, I can't believe this fucking..." And people would be fascinated that we're hanging out, and she's just screaming in my ear. Just mad, the curse words, whatever. And I'm like, okay, all right. So which one? Okay, I got it. Jane's a bitch? Cool. Good to know, right? And they're like, "Dude, how do you fucking deal?" I'm like, "Oh, she's not mad at me. Why would I react at all?"
Yeah.
She's not. She just wants to get frustration out.
Yeah.
But I have friends that I've watched go through that where they're yelling and like, "Why are you so mad?" It's like, dude, why are you reacting? It's not targeted to you. It's a venting. It's a letting out.
But that's what, like I said, in terms of all the stuff I'm reading, it's like, because before it's like not knowing, right? Understanding. A lot of peace comes through understanding. You understand that, and that gives you a much better resolve to just, now I know what to do.
I don't give a shit. Anybody yelling at me is hilarious. I don't care.
Well, yeah. I mean, and I've talked on the podcast, anger comes from fear. So when someone's yelling, you used to be like, "Oh, what the fuck?" And you meet hostility with hostility. I'm like, now all anger to me is fear. And I'm like, oh, I don't need to be afraid.
Do you hug it out?
No. Because that's the thing too. You make somebody more afraid if you're like, "What are you so afraid of?" Now they're afraid that they look like a bitch on top of being angry or whatever. What are you talking about? I'm afraid? Anyways, I just think it's the more you know.
Yeah,
that's it. Just the more you know.
We both just did the.
But I love the
star across the sky when he said
with our hands. Yeah. But
we're good at radio.
I find that stuff fascinating. You know what I mean? It's like I said, it's just understanding the communication. I would infinitely rather someone yell at me than to say nothing. Because at least you're giving me data to process when you're yelling. I can understand maybe sort of where your head's
saying
at.
nothing is saying something, though, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. But it's saying infinitely less than when you're... Yeah, oh, God. We're at the 2-hour mark. Did you just drop your phone?
I just dropped my phone. It's okay.
It's like, I didn't even know you had one.
I have
Tried
one.
to change SIM cards. Like, do you have like a fucking dossier
We don't
of like
talk about
SIM
that.
cards
We
all
don't
over the
talk
world?
about
Okay, that's the one thing.
Yeah, we don't talk about my SIM cards. That's out of bounds, man.
So you're a comedian. I just want to say,
Which you wouldn't be able to know.
I
You
know
wouldn't be
that
able
we're
to
at like
tell.
the 2-hour mark.
Should I say
so-
something funny at some point?
No, I think the conversation's been good. Listen, at the end of the day, I wanted to have you on the show because I find you fascinating and funny and all that stuff, and I hope that is translated to the listeners. This episode won't come out in time for them to hear that you're at Absolute Comedy this
Good.
weekend.
So I will have escaped.
Yeah. So as everyone, if anyone's listening, I got my regular listeners. So we're recording this the day that K-Trev's interview comes out. So they're listening to K-Trevor. Well, you and I are shooting the shit.
Trev?
Katrev.
I call him Katrev. He didn't like it.
Really? There was he was doing a roast battle, and somebody says they call him K. Trevor Wilson because he weighs as much as 1,000 Trevs. Is it 1,000? No, M is 1,000, right?
Okay.
So what? Well, why was MM the year 2000?
Don't worry about it. It's Roman.
Oh, well, what's K?
That's
Like when someone says like, yeah, I made 11K is 11,000. So yeah, fuck
kilometer.
you. I guess. No, but you say for money.
Kilo.
So it
Kilo's
cost me
1,000.
11, 12, or
But kilo is
11K.
the preface for 1,000.
I'm gonna find something you don't know more than me on.
Video games. Board games. You got me beat in board games. I don't know what the fuck you had me playing.
You know what? You had fun, and you made that. You would not think that you playing those games know as much as you do. Like this turning tiles, so lovely. And then you went to play ping pong. You regressed after that
No.
game.
Pinball.
Pinball. Fuck. Whatever.
I didn't regress.
I'm over it.
I won like $40.
Yeah, Jay has a gambling problem.
It's great.
He never wins. I don't know.
It's so great. I love it.
Not good at it at all. I know he won. We were playing the lamest game. It was like cards and dice, and I won $60 off him. And it's like
He's right there.
And it wasn't like one game for $60. It was like literally, I think 12 games at $5 a piece, and he lost every game over and over and over and over again. Like you'd think that you'd start to learn that you're not good at something. Jay is not good at gambling. But yeah, so you're at Absolute this week. You got a couple albums available? Are your albums available?
I don't like any of them.
Shut up. Nobody likes anything to do. But you've got some albums out, right? Let's get some downloads. Are they on iTunes? They
I
should
don't
be.
know.
Fucking
You're
pain
so
in the ass.
frustrated.
No, I'm just gonna type your fucking name and I'll get it myself. You don't want to help me? I'll get it right.
I mean, they might be out there, but I don't know.
You really don't know if your shit's...
No, because I pulled a bunch of stuff.
I'm gonna find your
I have.
face.
I'm working on a new one.
You don't have one called The Toasters, right?
No, that's a band. That has the song. They have the song "Secret Agent Matt Davis," which does not help the fact that I've never worked for the CIA.
So you don't. People cannot
required to
necessarily
say
get
that.
your shit.
It might be on iTunes. I don't know.
I'm not seeing any. Oh, there it is. Matt Davis, bootlegged.
There's probably some of those. There's one from There's one from Canada in there.
Bootlegged Volume 3, Bootlegged Volume 2. The point is you got albums called Bootlegged, and I see them right here on Apple Music, so thanks for not fucking helping me, ass face.
I'm gonna pull those down.
Then fucking pull them down. You guys have very limited time to get Matt Davis's fucking stuff. But it's great there. You're here for the rest of the weekend. Always love having you. What can we point people in direction to something of you?
Not right now. No.
No?
I know it's fucked up, isn't it?
I don't have it either. I have this podcast. That's about it. And we're going to lose some people over this one. I don't even
think
remember.
so? You think this is
not
bad?
at all. No, I think it's great, but I have very unpopular opinions. So I think this was great. This basically underlines exactly why I wanted to have you on. I like having the good conversation. I like having stuff that stimulates thought, as opposed to being like, I don't know, people pull their phone, do a selfie. I'm being very judgmental. My listeners are wicked people.
Wicked?
Wicked people, yeah, because they listen to me.
They're wicked?
Yeah, I don't. They're very patient. They're very understanding. But Jason's doing what Jason does, which is to grab his penis and give us the finger. No, that's when Colin you present like that. Anyways, yeah, that's just the fucking wacky orphanage that we live in. A bunch of fucking weirdos. We've had like 3 different comics in the last hour just come and go from the house.
I don't understand.
We were saying that this is you got a government.
Are you here to
program.
make coffee? Are you here to make coffee?
Yeah.
He's mad because I slapped him the other night.
You slapped him?
Not really, but I did that whole hand up and slap in his face. He thought he was going to get slapped.
Yeah, he lives in terror all the time. Jason's very skitterish. Skittish.
I like skitterish, but
Skitterish. I make up words because I'm not that smart. But yeah, dude, it's always great having you. I think it illustrates the conversation of this types of conversations we have. I sit there, you say words I don't know, and I nod and I smile, and then I go,
stop trying to shrink the box. Stop trying
I'm not
to
trying to
shrink
shrink the box. I understand a lot of what you're saying.
You're doing better than me.
No, I here's the thing is I love conversations like this because at the end of the day I do thirst. I'm open to new knowledge. I find that a lot of people, it's not fair to say a lot of people. I find that I end up in a lot of conversations where people want you to hear what they think, but they're not open to you think that. Whereas I openly invite someone to give me some information that will challenge. I don't know if I said this in the podcast, but I was talking to a psychologist, not psychiatrist, but not too long ago. The last year I was talking to a psychologist who was like, when do you stop? I think she was talking about like introverts and extroverts kind of thing, but she's like explaining how like an introvert will have an argument and then they'll just go away for a day and then they'll process it and they'll come back and like, here's where I stand on something. And she's like, how long, do you spend thinking about something before you're like, this is what I think about it and that's just the way it is? Like you're just firm on your position. I go, never. I'm never firm on my position. Like to me, concepts and things are always evolving. Like they're always open to new stuff, which makes it difficult to fucking take a stand on things.
It's hard.
But I like being open to it as opposed to people who are like you said, you find your little community and your thing that you relate to.
Right, but that's where like we talked, earlier on, a lot of comics to me aren't interesting until they're in their 40s. I think that's a lot of that. Is a lot of the self-evolution and just the time of collecting information to arrive at anything even resembling an interesting point of view.
Yeah.
There's a lot to process, man.
Yeah.
And it's almost silly to think that, at 25 you're going to act like you have any answers at all.
Yeah.
Like, why are you talking?
Yeah.
That's my attitude a lot of times. Why is this person even talking?
Well, that's the thing is
I don't think they can tell me, and that bothers me.
Well, and I've noticed that too, is that the older I get, the more I know, the quieter I am. I find that the people who know...
Oh, I hope you live to be 1,000.
Just shut the fuck up. I already do. Methuselah, fucking... I want to hold the Guinness World Record for being the oldest living fat person. Just be like, he made it to 52. I don't know. I find that the loudest people are the ones who know the least.
Sure, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? People can't wait for, look what I know. Posturing to an extent. But whatever, dude. I think you're awesome.
I feel like you've been ending this podcast for the last 10 minutes.
I'm trying to. Well, you know what? It's because I have to go do fucking grunt work that I don't want to do because I didn't finish high school, like we started this conversation with. Only instead of reading fucking Faust, and I know you never mentioned Faust, but Aristotle and Plato.
Well,
and
yeah, but
Marcus Aurelius
those
and
are
all that
just
stuff.
like old fucking dead guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't get weird until you get like into Deleuze and Guattari. Then it starts getting like, what the fuck's happening in my
There
brain?
you go. And that other guy who was
then,
Alexander was blocking his son. What was his name again? Diogenes or something?
Diogenes. He's good.
Diogenes. Yeah.
But
I wouldn't mind reading more.
He doesn't have any books. You have to read quotes of him from other people.
That's fine. It's like Mitch
All his
Hedberg
shit's
quotes.
gone. Yeah, it's like
50% of them aren't really his. They're just
Yeah.
like, this is some dope shit. Put his name on it.
that. Yeah, it's like that.
Right?
I'd recommend Jacques Rancière to you.
Okay. Can you send it to me? Write it down because a lot of the things. I actually, when I was dating this chick a while back, she was smart, but she used to say epitome all the time. And I was like, how do you not know that that's epitome? So like you could say someone's name and then I'd be like, oh fuck, I would never have thought to spell it like that. But she's like, it's honestly the epitome of, and I'm like, has no one, and she was good looking.
I like how she's using it. Was she using it correctly? That's even better.
She was using, yeah. She
That's
knew
amazing.
what epitome was.
She was fucking
but
with
she
you.
was never, no, dude, she said it like over the course of like a month. She said like,
I have a
she
buddy
would
who
say
says
it.
hyperbole, and I think he's just doing it to fuck with me.
Well, Brian Regan had the epitome of hyperbole. He was like, you mispronounced every word in your show. If that isn't the epitome of hyperbole, yeah, it's she would say it all the time, and I was like, how the fuck do you not like? And I never corrected her, and I assumed that everyone else didn't correct her. Like I'm kind of like, how's no one told you? And then I'd never told her, but she was attractive, and I.
That's how religions start.
Yeah. Fuck Britain, America. That's history, I think. Another great Matt Davis joke. Why don't you tell your good jokes anymore? That's stupid. That's a hacky fucking comic to comic burn.
I'm sorry.
I just like the stuff. You angry on stage with a fucking 3-piece suit. You sent a lot of mixed signals to human beings because you'd walk out looking absolutely gorgeous in your suits, fucking shiny suits and everything like that. And then you'd be like, let's try a tester joke.
And they would all. Well, it's just basic juxtaposition of conflict, right?
Yeah. I just thought it was hysterical.
Dressed like a Jaguar salesman and talking to you like a guy from a dumpster.
Yeah.
Right?
Spent a lot of time thinking about unicorn boners.
Well, who hasn't?
Right? Anyways, dude, I appreciate you spending time. I can't. We're gonna spend the whole fucking weekend together, hanging out and stuff like that. But I have to go do.
We will never see each other again.
That would break my heart. Very sad. To not say. I'm sure I'll see you again, but it'll be on some like fucking conflict video on CNN.
Doing shows for a junta in South America. Just doing this fundraiser. These nice guys, these gorilla fellas.
Dude, yeah. Oh, dude, we could go on forever. I will definitely next time you're in town. We'll actually have to talk about your whole stand-up career and everything, like not just the goddamn library that you've read.
It'll just get worse.
What's
I'm gonna
happening?
spike this mic.
Oh, are you? Fair enough. Well, Matt
Are
Davis.
you playing music?
Yeah, this is the outro, dude. But you're gonna have to cut the mics. Thanks for talking with me. I hope you guys love this interview. Matt's super wicked funny, dude.
I
Check him
apologize.
out.